My husband, with whom I have shared 30 years of mutual respect, clutched my wrist tightly in his final moments. Madame, I've lived a fulfilling life with one wife and one concubine. The three of us have lived well together. My only regret is that I couldn't show the world my love for Thalia's husband and wife. She was once your maid, but she bore children for me and deserves the position of a legitimate wife. If there's a next life, please, let her have the position of the first wife. I nodded through my tears. The love between the three of us was ultimately too cramped. If there's a next life, I will fulfill your wishes. The glaring red bridal veil before me suddenly jolted me into realizing that I had been reborn to the very day of my marriage to him. The memories of my past life were still hazy when a strong hand my shoulder. A familiar voice, filled with urgency, having fulfilled my sigh, called out, "Zuri, I'm sorry. I don't think we can go through with this marriage today. I must give the position of the first wife to Thalia. 7 days from now, I will carry you into my home in a proper sedan chair as my honored concubine. If you'll allow it." I pushed the person in front of me away, raised my hand, and tore off the veil. The young man before me was as refined and handsome as ever, looking like a noble scholar straight out of a book. But the words that left his mouth were a stab to my heart. Julian's words made it clear he had been reborn too. I clenched my fists inside my sleeves, nodded, and said, "Fine. I will fulfill your wishes." Julian excitedly pulled Thalia, who had been standing nearby, and intertwined their fingers. "Zuri, I knew you'd be understanding. But Thalia cannot marry without wedding clothes and a dowry. Why not let her use yours? After all, you're just a concubine. You won't need them." Thalia, still confused, could only feel as though a great fortune had suddenly fallen into her lap. She gazed sweetly at the man beside her. "Percival, is everything you say true?" Julian affectionately tapped her nose. "Silly girl. You will be my wife. And all of this is yours." Thalia's eyes reddened with emotion. "Thank you, Julian. But will the young lady really give me her dowry and the priceless phoenix coronet?" Julian chuckled and nodded. "Don't worry. She gave me up already. What are a few trinkets compared to that? From now on, her dowry and bridal attire will be yours." "Thank you, Julian. I won't be shy." Then, Thalia, grinning like a villain, reached for the veil adorned with pearls in my hands. With a rip, the valuable veil was torn. I raised my hand and slapped Thalia's delicate face hard. "How dare you? Are you bold enough to steal from me?" Thalia clutched her swollen cheek and tearfully spoke. "Julian, don't blame the young lady. After all, I'm just a servant. It's normal to be hit." Julian, heart-taking, gently cupped Thalia's face. "You shouldn't belittle yourself. You'll be my wife soon. No one will dare to look down on you again." He shielded Thalia behind him and looked at me with disappointment. "Zuri, you come from a prestigious family. Why don't you understand? Thalia is my legitimate wife. And I need to give her the dignity of a main wife. Your dowry and bridal attire are going to the Julian family. So what's the harm in giving them to Thalia?" I took the marriage certificate from a nearby servant and tore it to shreds in front of everyone. "Julian, what? I only agreed to fulfill your and Thalia's wishes. I never agreed to be your concubine. You can take Thalia, but the marriage between our families ends here." Julian stared at the fluttering red paper scraps, his brows furrowed in displeasure. "Zuri, today is my wedding day. Stop throwing a tantrum like a child. You love me so much. And if you won't marry me, who will you marry?" He leaned in closer, lowering his voice intentionally. "I know you're angry that a maid is being placed above you. But Thalia deserves it. To be honest, I've been reborn. In our past life, you couldn't have children. But Thalia bore sons for my Julian family. She is the greatest benefactor of the Julian family. And I must make up for that in this life." I looked at Julian's narcissistic face, feeling an overwhelming urge to slap him. When I came of age, I had fallen into an icy lake and injured my womb. After marrying Julian, I had volunteered to let him take a concubine to ensure he could have children, but he swore he needed no one but me. Those vows were still fresh in my mind. But after getting drunk, He slept with my maid Thalia. Thalia was quite fertile. And she became pregnant at the first attempt. As a noblewoman raised in a prestigious family, I didn't cause a scene. I still performed my duties as a good wife. Managing the household, educating the children, and alleviating his worries. But his dying words made me realize no matter how much I had supported his rise to power, I could never replace the love he had for his beloved concubine. I had already repaid my debt to Julian in my past life. In this life, I only wanted to stay far away from him. Julian, I don't understand what you're saying. I, Zuri, the daughter of the Zuri family, will never become a concubine. I will send someone to Julian's family to pay for the value tour. I didn't want Julian to know that I had been reborn as well, so I pretended I was done with him and turned to leave. He grabbed my sleeve in a frenzy. Suppressing his anger, he said, Zuri, having fulfilled one session. I don't blame you for not having memories of the past life. But you must think about it. If Thalia is just a concubine, the children she bears will be illegitimate. I can't let my sons and daughters be looked down upon. In my previous life, I had planned to adopt Thalia's children as my own. But Thalia, fearing she would lose favor and protection without children by her side, had coquettously insisted on keeping the children with Julian. It was Julian and Thalia's decision. Yet now he was placing the blame on me. How shameless. Julian, rest assured, I, Zuri, will never stand in the way of you and Thalia's happy fate. Please, stop pestering me. Who you choose as your legitimate wife or who you designate as your heir has nothing to do with me. I yanked my sleeve away from his grasp. With every word of his defense, his hypocritical mask was pulled off more thoroughly. Julian stared blankly at his hand, feeling an emptiness in his chest, as if it tightly clenched and was forever slipping away. Seeing Julian in this state, Thalia quickly stepped forward and softly comforted him. Julian, thank you for fighting for me. But I don't care about those worldly possessions. I only want to marry you. I would never dare take anything from the young lady. Julian regained his composure and, touched, pulled Thalia into his embrace. Thalia, you're so thoughtful. Don't worry. I'll give you the best. Then, Madame sorry. His gaze turned cold as he looked at me with a sense of entitlement, questioning. Zuri, Thalia has always been loyal to you. Now that she's getting married, isn't it only right for you to prepare her dowry? I calmly adjusted my sleeve. My voice icy. Percival has a poor memory. 7 winters ago, Thalia nearly froze to death in the snow, and I saved her. I haven't received a single token of gratitude for that life-saving favor. But now you have the gall to ask me for a dowry? Thalia awkwardly clutched Julian's sleeve, her voice trembling with false stares. Julian, my life is so hard. Please don't let me cause any rift between you and the young lady. She tried to use her pitiful, enduring act to turn the crowd against me. But she was wrong. No one was fooled, and no one would speak up for such a treacherous servant. Julian scolded me harshly. Sorry. You should really learn to temper your strong-willed nature. When you come to my door 7 days from now, I'll make sure to find a strict old nurse to teach you some manners. He turned his head and softly coaxed Thalia. Don't cry. I'll send someone to the tailor to get you the finest wedding gown. Don't worry. After we marry Zuri in 7 days, her dowry will be fully under your control as the mistress of the house. Thalia suppressed the excitement in her eyes and gently replied, I will listen to Julian. The onlookers finally understood what was happening. Julian was going to marry a maid instead of Zuri, the beautiful and talented eldest daughter of the Zuri family. People began to murmur, their voices low but cutting. Percival, are you out of your mind? Why marry a lump of mud when you could have the moon in the sky? If it weren't for the life debt you owe Zuri, this marriage would never have been yours. You're so ungrateful. Julian's face darkened, and he spoke harshly. The 3 of us will live our lives as we see fit. Julian's family matters are no concern of yours. His gaze shifted, and he deliberately softened his voice. Zuri, don't make a scene. Stay at home and wait for me. In 7 days, I will come and take you as my wife. Julian's family. Who gave you the right to demean my daughter like this? My father. Furious. Raised his fist, but I grabbed his sleeve. Father. There's no need to get angry with him. My tone was calm. My gaze sweeping over Julian. I no longer want to marry him. Now. It's all settled. I had seen through Julian's true nature. And this time, the man I would marry was someone else. In my past life, my father, who was direct and often offended the emperor, was helped by a benefactor who spoke up for him and cleared the emperor's doubts. Not only had this person saved the Zuri family, but he was also a pillar of the nation. He had once extended the lifespan of the Great Yu dynasty by 200 years, defending the country with his life. In the end, he was wrongfully accused of treason and collaborating with the enemy. When they confiscated his property, my father discovered that he was remarkably honest and had nothing but an empty house. In a secret compartment in his study, there was not a stash of silver or jewels, but a military manual. The emperor had rewarded my father with this book, and my father had regretted not being able to save the man, keeping the book all his life. When I opened the book, my fingers paused as I turned a page. There, in the margins, were delicate notes. The handwriting, worn from being touched repeatedly, was faint. But I instantly recognized it. It was the writing I had made as a girl. It was then that I realized he had secretly admired me all along. This man, a pillar of the nation, was the one I was destined to marry. I would protect him from the clutches of the villains who sought to harm him. Julian thought I was just sulking when I told my father I wouldn't marry him. And he shook his head helplessly. Zuri, don't say such things in anger. Stay at the general's mansion and wait for the wedding. 7 days will pass in the blink of an eye. I didn't want to waste time arguing with a fool. Fearing my father couldn't hold back his anger, I quickly pulled him back to the mansion, ordering the gate to be slammed shut with a loud bang to shut out Julian's nauseating face. In the general's hall, my parents were anxiously watching me, their brows furrowed in worry. I had been their precious daughter, raised with love and care, never having suffered any grievances. Today's humiliation hurt them more than a slap to the face. Don't worry, my daughter, my father said in a deep voice, his anger still simmering. Tomorrow, I will go to court and personally bring Julian and his family to task. That young man will have to come to our door and apologize. I grasped my father's hand, urging, Father, the apology is secondary. The key is to make a petition before the emperor, to clearly explain the terrible humiliation our Zuri family suffered today. We must let His Majesty know that Zuri family can never accept this marriage. Julian's family was of a respected lineage, and Julian himself carried the title of Liefasser, which had already caught the emperor's attention. The emperor, wanting to balance the various factions, was eager to see a marriage between the general's family and Julian's prestigious family. Even though Julian's behavior today had been foolish, it would be difficult for the Zuri family to unilaterally break the engagement. Now, however, was the perfect opportunity to make our stand clear and sever all ties. Don't worry, daughter. I understand, my father said. He locked himself in his study to write the official petition, while I arranged for the events of today to be spread far and wide, making sure the scandal was as public as possible. The next day, as I sat by the window reading, my maid Hannah rushed in, looking excited. Miss, my lord has thoroughly scolded Julian in court today. His Majesty is furious and has ordered Percival to kneel in front of the emperor and beg for forgiveness. He is right outside, kneeling at the door. Just as I had expected. Even though I had suffered immense humiliation yesterday, the emperor was still insistent on the marriage alliance. To completely dissolve this engagement, I needed to add fuel to the fire. I put down my book and stood up. Good, Madad. Let's go see. Outside the door, Julian stood with a bundle of thorns on his back, his face ashen, unsure whether the pain or embarrassment was worse. He looked up at me with a gaze full of resentment and reproach, his voice dripping with anger. Zuri, you will eventually belong to the Julian family. You've ruined a reputation of the Julian family. You won't get away unscathed either. What's the point of this? At this point, he still believed I would marry him no matter what. Beside him, Thalia was kneeling, sobbing. Miss, please don't be angry. If you let Julian go, I am willing to give up my position as the legitimate wife. Ridiculous. Julian grabbed Thalia's hand tightly. You will always be my legitimate wife. As for Zuri, she is just throwing a tantrum. She has feelings for me. So how could she truly destroy me? I lowered my eyes and secretly pinched my thigh. Tears immediately welled up. I looked at the two of them. My voice choked. Julian, I have never wronged you. Why do you keep coming to humiliate me like this? Before I could finish, I spat out a mouthful of blood. When I was hurriedly carried back to the mansion by the staff, the voices of the common people outside, scolding Julian and Thalia, clearly reached my ears. When no one was looking, I allowed a faint smile to curve at the corner of my lips. This marriage? It's over. Within half a day, the news that the general's daughter had been so enraged by Julian's family that she spat blood spread like wildfire throughout the capital. His Majesty was furious and severely punished Julian, cutting his salary for the year. He also scolded him for his lack of discipline in raising his son, and ordered him to stay home for 7 days of reflection. In an attempt to salvage their reputation, Julian's family quickly announced to the public that they were demoting Thalia to a concubine and would marry the Zuri family's eldest daughter as Julian's legitimate wife on an auspicious day. Unfortunately, on the day Julian came to fetch his bride, his actions had been so extreme that no one believed a word of it. Moreover, the emperor, to pacify the general's family, had already stopped intervening in the matter. As long as I did not agree, no one could force me into marrying into the Julian family. 7 days later, I went out with my maid to choose fabric for a new red bridal veil. By chance, I ran into Julian at the fabric shop. He was accompanying Thalia to select cloth. The moment Thalia saw me, she shrank into Julian's arms like a startled rabbit. Julian, why has the young lady followed us here? I only wish to spend a few peaceful days alone with you. Yet she can't even allow that? Julian cleared his throat guiltily. Sorry. I did say I'd marry you in 7 days. But Thalia wants some quiet time with me. You'll have to wait a little longer. In half a month, I'll personally carry you into my home. He leaned closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Thalia may be a concubine in name, but behind closed doors, she is the true mistress of the Julian family. I instinctively stepped back, putting distance between us. Percival, your habit of talking nonsense is worsening. You'd best see a physician. Our engagement was dissolved long ago, and if you keep tarnishing my name, I doubt your father's punishment will end with just 7 days of confinement. My resolute tone startled Julian, leaving him momentarily speechless and oddly uneasy. Before he could recover, Thalia clung to his arm tightly. Julian, Zuri is clearly saying one thing and meaning another. She claims she won't marry. Yet here she is, choosing fabric for a red veil. She must be too eager to wait. Those words instantly soothed Julian's panic. A smug smile curved his lips. Exactly. She loves me too much to marry anyone else. I should have checked the almanac before leaving home today of all days. I had to encounter these 2 wretched people. All I wanted was to finish my purchase quickly and leave. But as soon as I picked up a bolt of crimson silk, a small hand seized the other end. Julian, I've never worn such fine fabric before, Thalia said, tightening her grip, her gaze upon the silk filled with greedy longing. Julian pulled her into his arms with a show of generosity. If you like it, then buy it. Thalia clutched the fabric against her chest, her voice sickly sweet. Thank you, Julian. You're far too good to me. Naturally, I wouldn't take any fabric she'd touched. I turned away toward another shelf, but Thalia seemed determined to provoke me every time my eyes lingered on a piece of fabric. She would rush ahead and snatch it first. A chill flickered in my gaze. Want to play games? I'll play along. I began deliberately pointing out the most expensive brocades and cloud-patterned silks. Within mere minutes, Thalia's arms were piled high with bolts of fabric worth thousands of tiles. Clinging to Julian's arm, she swayed coquettously. Julian, what? I like all of these. You'll buy them for me, won't you? Beads of sweat appeared on Julian's forehead. His family was known for being an austere, scholarly household. Only a few days ago, he'd had to compensate me for the damaged bridal veil, and had already spent a fortune on Thalia's new clothes and jewelry. If he were to pay for all this today, the Julian family might well be left starving. Yet his pride wouldn't let him appear stingy before his beloved. His eyes darted toward me brazenly, as if it were only natural. Zuri, you caused me and Thalia great embarrassment before. Consider this your chance to make amends. Buy these fabrics for Thalia as a gesture of respect to your future mistress. Thalia chimed in sweetly, her tone affectionate but her words dripping with calculation. Yes. Zuri. We'll all be one family soon. Your money is Julian's money. Isn't it? We're just borrowing a little early, you wouldn't be so stingy. Right? I couldn't help but laugh aloud. Pretending to be grand with an empty purse, how ridiculous. Then I raised my voice deliberately, ensuring everyone nearby could hear. Julian. You're a scholar who ranked second in the imperial exam. Yet you speak such shameless words. Have all your classics been fed to the dogs? The sting of mockery shattered what little scholarly pride he had left. Around us, murmurs and snickers spread through the crowd. Faces turned toward him, some shaking their heads, others pointing in scorn. His face dark and to a livid shade. His humiliation palpable. Zuri. Since you refuse to appreciate kindness, then you can wait another month before entering my home. Reflect on your behavior. He grabbed Thalia's hand. Thalia, having fulfilled my ancestor. We're leaving. But Thalia's eyes flashed with fury. She wrenched her hand free and seized a pair of scissors from the counter, hacking wildly at the luxurious fabrics in her arms. Then, let out a low sigh. Tossing the scissors aside, she feigned alarm and cried out, "Oh dear. I'm so sorry. My hand slipped. Young lady, Unisarado sorry. Since you chose these fabrics first, remember you'll have to pay for them." Foolish woman. The fabric was Rue, and by her own hand, what did it have to do with me? I turned calmly to the shopkeeper. Shopkeeper. Aren't you going to report this? He snapped out of his daze and immediately shouted, "Thank you for the reminder. Miss Zuri." Someone stop Percival and his wife. You're not leaving until this is paid for. Julian's path was instantly blocked by several clerks. His face turned ashen with rage. How dare you? I am a son of the Julian family. An imperial scholar personally appointed by His Majesty. Who dares to detain me? The shopkeeper stepped forward. His tone firm but respectful. Master Julian. Your wife has Rue and over a dozen bolts of my finest cloth. Even if you're of noble birth, you must pay every coin owed. If not, then be prepared to spend a few nights in prison. His voice turned cold at the end. Thalia's bravado crumbled. She clung to Julian's arm, trembling. Julian, Manod. I didn't mean to. Please. Think of something, I can't go to prison. Julian tried to stay composed, patting her hand gently. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Then he turned to me, a pleading note creeping into his voice. Zuri. This sum is nothing to the Zuri family. Please. Pay it for us. I'm begging you. I gave a small, disdainful smile. Julian, you and Thalia have humiliated me time and again. Why should I repay cruelty with kindness? Instead of wasting breath begging me, you'd better find a way to clean up your own mess. Realizing I wouldn't relent, Julian ground his teeth and turned to Thalia. Thalia. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Pawn your jewelry for now. Once I receive my post and salary, I'll buy you finer ones. But Thalia, unwilling to part with her trinkets, began sobbing even harder. Julian. I come from a low background. Those noble ladies already look down on me. Without fine jewelry to uphold my dignity, they'll laugh me out of every gathering. I can bear the humiliation, but I can't let you lose face because of me. Truly, hadn't so sold my obsession. This is all Zuri's fault. She provoked me on purpose until I lost my temper. She should be the one to pay. I caught Hannah's arm before she could lunge at Thalia and fixed my gaze coolly on the doorway. Thalia. Save your excuses for the magistrate at Kaifeng Prefecture. Thalia followed my gaze and froze. The constables were standing there. Solemn and grim, their very presence exuding authority. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor. Julian. I was wrong. Please, having fulfilled my obsession, Send someone home to fetch the money, she wailed, her voice shrill with fear. The shopkeeper took the opportunity to offer a final warning. Master Julian, your future is bright. Don't throw it away over a small sum. For the sake of your reputation and your career, pay what's sowed and keep your record clean. Julian's face was ashen, a mixture of pale and green. Finally, Haddington felt Leo gritting his teeth. He snarled at the servant beside him. Go back. Bring the silver. About 15 minutes later, Julian's mother arrived at the fabric shop, accompanied by several people, hurrying with brisk steps. She glared at me with a sour expression. Is this how the Zuri family raises their daughters? Trying every trick to harm their husband's wealth. A woman who eats inside the bowl and looks outside the pot deserves to be disciplined with family law. As the matriarch of the family, Julian's mother boldly spoke such harsh, disrespectful words in public, directly offending the general's house. There was a deliberate edge to her tone, as if to provoke. In my past life, when I married into the Julian family, she had done many things that could have destroyed Julian and his family. Fortunately, having fulfilled I had intervened and resolved the matters, allowing Julian to continue his career smoothly. Sadly, Julian remained oblivious to everything, thinking his mother had always had his best interests at heart. I shot Julian's mother an icy stare and replied coldly. The insults to my honor by the Julian family today will be reported to His Majesty by my father. Thanks to your son, you can now rest, for a while. Julian's mother's face turned pale in an instant. She huffed coldly, then pulled out several silver notes from her sleeve, slamming them onto the counter with force. You piece of trash relying on others. Take the money. I'm taking my son away. Before leaving, Julian actually turned back to warn me. Sorry. No matter how unjust you think I am today, in a month, I will still take you as my wife. But you must reflect on yourself. From now on, don't do anything to harm the interests of the Julian family. His mother impatiently tugged at his sleeve. Stop wasting time with Suri. Your legitimate wife is Thalia. She's frightened today. Go and comfort her. Julian immediately responded respectfully. Mother, don't worry. I won't treat Thalia unfairly. As I watched the three of them leave, whispers spread through the crowd. Julian is in for trouble. With such an unreasonable mother and wife. It's his own fault. He throws away the general's daughter and marries a maid as his wife. Is he trying to make life difficult for himself? I had no interest in staying. So after selecting the fabric, I left the store. Back at the mansion, the person sent by the Silas family to propose had just left. My mother held my hand and gently asked, Daughter, the Silas family may not be a prestigious noble family, but they are well respected and upright. Silas is also this year's top scholar. Would you consider marrying him? My heart couldn't help but race. As expected, Silas had feelings for me. It seemed that after hearing about my broken engagement with the Julian family, he had immediately sent his parents to propose. Mother, I'm willing, I said softly, my face burning as I lowered my head. My mother smiled in satisfaction, patting my hand. Good, you could. Good. Your father and I will make sure everything is taken care of. The marriage between Silas and me progressed smoothly, and the wedding was set for a month later. One day, I was in my room, focused on embroidering my wedding veil, when Hannah rushed in. Her steps hurried. Miss, Julian failed the examination for the scholarly title of Shuji. So he won't be joining the Hamlin Academy. He's outside the mansion now. Hoping you can help him. Julian, a second-degree scholar, needed to pass the official exams to become a Shuji, and gain access to the Hamlin Academy. I put down my embroidery and stood up. Let's go. Let's take a look. Helping him wasn't an option. But watching the drama unfold was intriguing enough. Outside the general's mansion, Julian was pacing back and forth like a restless ant on a hot pan. As soon as he saw me, he quickly walked up. Zuri, you have to help me. In my previous life, I passed the exams. Why did I fail this time? I failed the exam. Fine. But that young master of the Duke of Yongning, who's nothing but a wastrel, how did he pass? This must be a scheme. Your grandfather is the Grand Tutor. As long as he speaks well of me before His Majesty, everything will be set right. And I'll get my rightful place. The Duke of Yongning's son might be a playboy, but in his past life, he was the one who held the northern border gate, saving the country. To be precise, he was a playboy with real talent. As for Julian, he prided himself on his exceptional talents, climbing into the cabinet thanks to the backing of the general's family and the Grand Tutor's family. But his actions were all about playing it safe, protecting his own interests. What had he ever done for the country or the people? A man who, even at the end of his life, couldn't forget to elevate a maid to be his legitimate wife. What could we expect from him? Now this result. This was real justice. Julian, mind out a low sigh. Stop with these superstitions. Why blame others for your failure? Why don't you look at yourself? I've heard that ever since you married Thalia, you've been indulging in pleasure every day, refusing to even read a single page of your books. Moreover, you even forced the general's legitimate daughter to become your concubine. With such a lack of learning and virtue, isn't it inevitable you would fail? Julian lowered his head. Ashamed. A sense of regret began to grow in his heart. Had it been a mistake to marry Thalia? Seeing his expression, Thalia hurriedly kneeled before me. Sorry, hadn't so sold my obsessor. It's all my fault for clinging to Julian and distracting him from his studies. But I couldn't help myself. I beg you, for the sake of our future as a family, please help him. I looked at Thalia's pretense, the coldness in my eyes deepening. I'm getting married soon, but my husband will not bear the surname Gu. Julian's face was filled with disbelief. Sorry, you must be jealous of Thalia and trying to anger me. 3 years ago, when I saved you from the frozen lake, we already shared a bond. What proper man would want you now? Thalia's eyes flickered, and she quickly cried out. Julian is right. Miss. You've lost your purity. And you can't bear children. It's only because Julian is kind-hearted that he's willing to accept you as a concubine. I slapped them both hard across the face. If you're so eager for a beating, I'll grant your wish. That day when I fell into the frozen lake, I was wearing thick winter clothes. How could there have been any skinship? As for my body, it has been restored to full health. A few days ago, Silas had specially brought a famous doctor to examine me, who confirmed my full recovery. This meant that in my past life, I could have given birth. The inability to bear Julian's child was not my fault. Before Julian could digest this, Thalia interrupted sharply. Miss, lying is not good. Even if you can't have children, Julian would never despise you. After all, I'm very lucky with children. She quickly changed the subject. But now is not the time for this. You need to think of a way to get Julian into the Hamlin Academy. If he doesn't, he'll never have a place in the cabinet. She acted as though she were about to throw herself at the stone lion at the gate. If you refuse to help him because Julian is marrying me, then I might as well die. Julian was terrified and immediately pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Thalia, don't do anything foolish. Even if I'm not entering the cabinet, I'll still regain everything that's rightfully mine through my talent. He turned to glare at me. Sorry. Your childish tantrums are truly disgusting. When I took you in as my wife, I only sent a palanquin carried by 2 men. You brought your dowry and entered through the side gate, that's all. I didn't want to listen anymore. I waved my hand toward the gate. Someone, throw these 2 filthy creatures out of here. The day of the wedding had finally arrived. The Silas family's dowry had nearly emptied their storehouses, clearly indicating their regard for me. With the phoenix crown and cloud robes adorning me, I grasped the man's long, strong hand and sat into the Grand 8 palanquin sedan, leaving amidst the joyous sounds of the wedding procession. Not long after the cheer at the general's residence faded, a small, lonely sedan arrived slowly. The butler of the Julian family anxiously looked around. After asking, he learned that the general's legitimate daughter had already gotten married. The butler's heart nearly stopped in fear as he hurried back to the Julian family estate, here and all the way to the study. Out of breath. Young master. It's bad. Zuri's already married. Julian rushed out immediately. What did you say? Say it again. The butler opened his mouth to speak but was interrupted by Thalia, who appeared behind Julian. She pressed a hand to her chest, her brow furrowed in pain, and looked fragile. Julian. My chest hurts so much. I think I might not make it. Seeing her in pain, Julian hesitated only a moment before scooping her up. Butler. Go tell Zori. If she continues this nonsense, I'll demote her to a lowly maid. The butler faltered, sweating heavily. Young master's hysteria was becoming worse. Zori was already married. How could she return to the estate as a concubine? Julian stayed by Thalia's bedside all day, only remembering the secluded courtyard he had prepared for Zori in the evening. He pushed open the courtyard door, only to find the grass overgrown, the place empty. The familiar dull pain in his chest returned, and he clutched his heart, glaring at the butler. I clearly told you to arrange the worst courtyard for Zori to stay in. Where is she? Where have you hidden her? The butler wiped the sweat from his forehead, trembling. Young master. Zori. She reeked here. Master. It's bad. Thalia's maid rushed in, panic in her voice. The young mistress is in even more pain. She says her chest feels like it's going to split. You need to go see her. The maid's frantic cries interrupted the butler's words again. Inside the silken curtains, Thalia lay in Julian's arms, crying like a wilted flower. Julian. It's my worthless body that failed you, ruining your wedding night with the young lady. She won't be angry with me, will she? Julian kissed her forehead tenderly. Don't worry. She's a noble woman from a great family. Since she's already entered the Julian family as a concubine, she should know her place. Thalia smiled slyly and nestled against him like a cat. Julian. I don't have a powerful family like the young ladies. I can only rely on your love. Please. Love me more. Her flirtatiousness was irresistible. Julian's resolve crumbled. Whatever guilt or sympathy he had was quickly forgotten. He growled, pulling her onto the spacious bed with him. Exhausted from the previous night, the two of them didn't wake until late into the morning. Julian allowed Thalia to drape his cloak over his shoulders, but his eyes kept glancing toward the door. Zuri is too ill-mannered. Doesn't she know she should bring tea to the lady of the house on the second day after entering? Thalia wiped the corner of her eye, on the verge of tears. Julian. Sister must be upset with me. For the sake of peace, I'll go apologize to her. She pretended to leave, but Julian quickly pulled her back into his arms. Nonsense. You're the lady of the house now. There's no reason for you to bow to her. A concubine. Does the Julian family's code of conduct mean nothing? I'll show her who's in charge. Thalia suppressed the gleam of satisfaction in her eyes and feigned concern. Julian. Sister is delicate. Don't truly hurt her. Just scare her a little. At that moment, the door opened, and Julian's mother entered with several maids and servants. Julian's mother's voice was stern. Julian. Didn't you say yesterday you would bring Zori into the house? Where is she? Julian pushed Thalia away, panic flashing across his face. Mother. Didn't Zuri bring her dowry yesterday? Julian's mother furrowed her brows. I thought you'd been caught up with Thalia and postponed it. Julian immediately denied it. No. Butler. Explain what's going on here? The butler collapsed to his knees, his voice trembling. Master. I was going to report this yesterday. Zuri has already married. If you had pursued her yesterday, there might have been a chance. But now, it's too late. Julian collapsed into a chair, despondent. This can't be true. You're lying. Zuri loves me. How could she marry someone else? Julian's mother stepped forward and patted his shoulder. Julian. Don't jump to conclusions. Why don't you go to the Zuri family and find out for yourself? Don't go. Julian. Thalia urgently blocked his way. She's only trying to deceive you. She just wants you to chase after her, so she can control you forever. Julian considered her words seriously. Thalia's right. I won't fall for it. Didn't you want to go to the snowy path the other day? Let's go now and leave her to reflect on her actions. Julian, filled with a strong sense of resolve, had been tangled up with Thalia for days. She had used all her charm to cater to him. But as he looked at her, her eager, obsequious manner began to irritate him. He was from a noble family, raised with the best education, and only a noblewoman like Zuri, carefully cultivated by her family, was worthy of him. Julian thought. Let Zuri be a concubine for a while and let her pride be ground down. In the future, things would return to how they had been in his past lives, Zuri as his wife managing the household, Thalia as his concubine warming his bed, and all three of them living harmoniously as before. This way, having fulfilled Maid Sai, he would fulfill his past wish for Thalia to become his official wife, without truly wronging Zuri. But 3 days passed, and Zuri still hadn't appeared. Unable to bear it any longer, Julian pushed Thalia aside, hastily ordered a carriage, and rushed toward the general's residence. The general's mansion was crowded with people, for today was the day that the Zuri family's young lady was returning home. Madam, watch your step. Silas carefully helped me down from the carriage, worried that anything might go wrong. Julian watched from a distance, his madness evident as he rushed over. Silas, having fulfilled my I'm sorry. Don't touch her with your filthy hands. Zuri is mine. I slapped him hard across the face. Julian, why not a low sigh? If you're sick, go see a doctor. Don't lose your mind in front of me. I am Silas's legitimate wife, and I have nothing to do with you. The onlookers immediately began whispering among themselves, pointing fingers at Julian. Julian must have lost his mind to think Zuri would be his concubine. Even more ridiculous. He marries a maid and turns her into his treasure, but expects the general's legitimate daughter to be his concubine. How did this scholar even pass the exams? Something's definitely off with his brain. Julian's cherished reputation and dignity were shattered right before his eyes. His eyes red, and as he growled, "Shut up. This is a family matter. It's not for you to meddle in." He suddenly turned to me, his voice filled with desperation. "Zuri, I regret it. I won't make you my concubine anymore. I'll marry you properly with 3 letters and 6 tokens. Please, don't join forces with Silas to deceive me. All right?" His handsome face, once proud and aloof, now looked pitiful and laughable. Even now, he still dreamed that I would change my mind. "Julian, Watatal no Sai. You married Thalia, the woman you've longed for. What more do you want?" Julian shook his head desperately, as if doing so would stop me from leaving. "Zuri, I'm sorry. I was greedy, wanting both the fish and the bear's paw. But after marrying Thalia, I realized my true feelings. The person I really love is you, and you're the only one who can be my wife." Thalia, supported by her maid, staggered forward, crying out, "Julian, you find Julie, if you want Zuri to be your legitimate wife, what am I? I'm the woman you truly love." Julian looked at her, no longer with a trace of tenderness, but with cold, mocking disdain. "Thalia, you're just a lowly maid. Being raised to the position of a proper wife for a month is already a miracle. Don't be so greedy." Thalia's tears mixed with her snot, looking utterly pitiful. "Julian, why? It's not like that. You said only a woman as gentle as me deserves to be your legitimate wife." Julian quickly glanced at me, worried I might misunderstand. "Shut up. You're so shameless. Trying to be the mistress of the Julian family? You think you're worthy?" Julian's harshness finally made Thalia realize that all the sweet words men speak in bed are just empty promises. But she had tasted the sweetness of being the lady of the house and would never let go easily. She clutched her stomach and cried, "Julian, I don't mind being a concubine, but you can't treat your own flesh and blood like this." Julian stared at Thalia's stomach, and for the first time, there was a flicker of emotion in his eyes. Thalia quickly seized the moment. "I know my lowly status, but Miss can't have children. The Julian family's lineage depends on me. If I'm just a concubine, the child will be born a bastard. Please, after the child is born and added to the family register, will you marry Miss into the house?" Julian immediately turned to me, pleading, "Zuri, wait for me. Just a few months. I promise. Once the child is born, I'll send her back to the concubine quarters and officially marry you." Silas, who had been making sure I was well taken care of, walked up to Julian. "Percival, Zuri is my wife. If you dare speak like that again, don't blame me for not showing mercy. As a top scholar and now serving in the Hamlin Academy, Silas carried an air of authority, even without raising his voice. Julian glared at Silas's more handsome face. His fists clenched tight under his sleeves. He snarled. Silas, your talent and looks may be superior to mine, but you're not of my standing. The most important thing is that Zuri and I were husband and wife in our past life. We loved each other for a lifetime. Silas, if you really love her, you'd divorce her now. Or you'll ruin her. In our past life, you betrayed the country and conspired against the throne. Silas interrupted Julian sharply. To sow discord between me and Zuri. You're even making up these absurd tales of past lives? Stop dreaming. I will never let go of Zuri's hand. Not even in death. Since she chose me, I will love and protect her for the rest of my life. Julian stood there, frozen, watching as the two of them entered the mansion. His heart a turmoil of mixed emotions. Why did Silas give him the feeling of having loved Zuri across 2 lifetimes? Thalia grabbed Julian's sleeve. Julian, Yin, she's changed her heart. Only I am truly devoted to you. I and the child will never leave you. Julian pushed Thalia to the ground with force. You wretch. If it weren't for you causing a scene and pretending to have chest pains, Zuri wouldn't have been snatched away by Silas. Someone. Strip her of that silk. Replace it with rough cloth and throw her out to the servants' quarters. Thalia screamed as she avoided the servants' hands. Julian. You can't do this to me. I'm carrying your child. Julian laughed maliciously. I'll acknowledge the child in your belly. But I'll never let you or your son claim your place. I'll tell him that you're just the lowest of slaves. Thalia felt a chill all over her. The man before her was no longer the gentle young master, he was a demon. But she, too, had a ruthless side buried deep within. Julian. You're cruel. But if you won't let him recognize me, fine. I'll get rid of this bastard myself. Julian's gaze turned cold. You have no say in this. Someone. Drag her away. In the Julian family study, wine jars rolled across the floor. Julian threw back the wine, tears mixing with the liquor as it flowed into his collar. His throat emitting a beastly sob. Clutching the jar, he muttered, Zuri. If I could do it all over again, I would never let Thalia be my wife. Without you, I can't live too. A hand suddenly grabbed the wine jar. And with a loud bang, it shattered to the ground. Julian, Julian. How much longer are you going to degrade yourself? If you really care, then pull yourself together and take her back. The wine had half woken him up. And Julian looked up in confusion. Mother. A gentleman doesn't take another man's wife. Can I really do this? Julian's mother lowered her long lashes, hiding the calculation in her eyes. Of course. Rules and face are important. But all I want is for my son to be happy. Without regrets. Her words struck him like a shot of adrenaline. And Julian's eyes suddenly lit up. Mother. I know what I need to do now. His mother affectionately stroked his head. Good boy. Thalia may be wasteful and unwise. But now she carries your child. You should personally bring her back and comfort her well. Julian clenched his neck. Mother. I'm losing Zuri because of her. If she weren't still carrying my child, I would have sold her to a brothel already. His mother lowered her voice. Foolish son. Only if you continue to dote on Thalia will Zuri feel jealous and turn her attention back to you. I know what girls think. Listen to me. In a month, Serafina will hold a plum blossom banquet. Take Thalia with you. The snow had just fallen yesterday. And the plum blossoms in the garden were blooming even more brightly. Serafina and I were strolling through the plum grove. The crisp fragrance of the flowers filling the air, which lifted our spirits. Suddenly, Serafina nudged my shoulder and mischievously laughed. Zuri. Silas with his broad shoulders and narrow waist. Can you handle it? My face flushed. And I lowered my head, pretending to be serious. How improper. Who would talk about that with you? Seeing me flustered, Serafina giggled and playfully poked me. Don't be shy. What's there that we can't talk about? We were both laughing when Julian appeared. with Thalia at his side, walking straight toward us. In the cold weather, Thalia was only wearing a thin, sheer gown. After greeting Serafina, Thalia let out a delicate sneeze. Julian quickly took off his thick cloak and wrapped it around her. Be careful not to catch a cold. I'll be heartbroken if you do. Thalia blushed in response and touched her stomach. Thank you, Julian, for caring so much about us. Serafina raised an eyebrow. Julian, you and your wife really are affectionate. Julian's smile froze. The title Julian felt like a needle stabbing into his chest. His marriage to a maid as his legitimate wife had ruined to family alliances, angering the emperor. His fellow scholars had already received positions, while he had been left behind. But in front of the emperor's favorite princess, he dared not show his anger. He could only force a smile. Your Highness. You're joking. Serafina shook her head with a sigh. Mistaking fish eyes for pearls, this vision is truly beyond comprehension. Thalia, catching the princess's implied criticism, grew anxious and immediately defended herself. Your Highness. What true love is involved. Background doesn't matter. Julian and I love each other with all our hearts. And we hope you will bless us. Normally, Serafina would have reprimanded her. But today, she surprised us by nodding. You're right. Then I wish you to stay locked together and never separate. She finished her words and pulled me away. Julian, without a low sigh, seeing I didn't even glance at him, called out urgently. Mrs. Silas. It's a rest day today. Didn't Silas come with you? My husband is busy with official matters. Unlike Julian, who is all this leisure. In my previous life, I had married Julian smoothly. I remembered that he had just joined the Hanlon Academy at this time. His schedule so packed that his feet barely touched the ground. The memory caused Julian to blush with shame. He didn't dare respond to me. Thalia, staring at Julian's gaze on me, looked ready to spit poison. Mrs. Silas. Actually, having consoled my sigh. I've been meaning to thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have found a husband as wonderful as Julian. Thalia's words were a veiled boast. A subtle jab at the fact that a maid had beaten me. A noble woman. To marry Julian. Serafina slapped her without hesitation. A wolf that has been raised too well. A servant who dares to show arrogance in front of her mistress? Zuri is kind. But I don't have that much patience. Thalia, clutching her burning face, nearly burst into tears. She looked at Julian, hoping he would come to her defense. But Julian's gaze remained fixed on me, completely indifferent to her plight. Thalia gritted her teeth, bowed deeply, and said, I remember this. Thank you for the lesson, Your Highness. Serafina and I continued walking along the lake, with maids trailing behind us at a respectful distance. Suddenly, I was shoved hard from behind. The ground by the lake was slippery, and I lost control, sliding toward the thin ice on the water. Serafina screamed in panic. Watch out. After falling into the water during my coming-of-age ceremony, I had already mentally rehearsed countless times how to save myself. In a flash, I reached out and grabbed the willow branch hanging over the edge, using my waist to forcefully propel myself back onto the shore. Without hesitation, I kicked the black hand that had pushed me, sending it flying. Ah, help! Julian! Save me! Thalia's scream was heart-rending. With a sharp crack, the thin ice shattered, and the cold water surged up to her chest, making her tremble uncontrollably. Julian didn't want to care whether she lived or died, but because she was carrying his child, he had no choice but to jump in and rescue her. Serafina immediately ordered someone to fetch the imperial physician, worried that I might have hurt myself. I was about to say I was fine when a sudden wave of nausea hit me. An inexplicable sense of expectation filled me. Silas worked so hard every night, perhaps there was already a little life growing inside me. The imperial physician carefully checked my pulse and smiled, congratulating me. Congratulations, Mrs. Silas. You're pregnant. Serafina was even more excited than I was, quickly helping me sit down on a nearby chair. Zuri, from now on, you must take good care of yourself. Don't let anything happen to the baby. I laughed softly. Your Highness. I come from a family of generals. I'm not that fragile. The ladies attending the banquet gathered around to congratulate me. I thanked each of them, my mind already on the surprise I would give Silas when I returned home. But as I looked up, I saw Julian standing outside the crowd, frozen, his face as white as a sheet, his eyes fixed on my belly. It's impossible. You can't have children. How can you be pregnant? The physician must have made a mistake. I stood up and walked toward him step by step, my voice cold. Julian. I told you before. My body is fine now. He collapsed to the ground, murmuring to himself. You're fine? Then what's wrong with me? But why is Thalia pregnant with my child? Could it be? A terrifying thought flashed through Julian's mind. His eyes, bloodshot, wild with fury. He lunged at Thalia and gripped her neck tightly. Whore! Tell me who is the father of the bastard in your womb? Thalia, who had nearly drowned in the frozen lake just a while ago, now found herself choking under his grip, gasping for air as though her life were slipping away. Julian, what's wrong with you? The child is yours. She managed to squeeze out in a strangled voice. Though Thalia was despised by most, she was pregnant, and in such a pitiful state. The onlookers rushed forward to pull Julian off her. Julian, what are you doing? Aren't you the one who cares most about Thalia and the child in her belly? Thalia, like a fish out of water, collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, held back by the crowd. Julian's glare never left Thalia. Whore! Did you betray me or not? Thalia's face, already pale, grew ashen, her skin like that of a corpse. Julian, Yakuza, I swear. You are the only man in my life. If I lie, let my body rot away. Seeing Thalia swear on her life, Julian finally believed her to some extent. Perhaps, in his previous life, he hadn't been able to make Zuri pregnant due to fate. Serafina turned to me. Zuri, this vile servant almost caused you to drown. How should we punish her? Thalia, panic-stricken, shook her head. I swear, I didn't push Silas's wife. She kicked me into the water for no reason. I know I'm low-born, but I didn't deserve to be treated like this. Seeing her cry so pitifully, drenched and clutching her belly, even I had doubts. Silas's wife. Could there be some misunderstanding? I don't think she'd have the courage to do this. Yeah. She doesn't seem like the type. Before I could speak, a cold voice interrupted. Huh. You never truly know someone. Whether she pushed or not. Doesn't my wife know best? Silas's sharp gaze cut through Thalia before settling on the crowd, his voice was low but carried a chilling undertone. If my wife hadn't reacted quickly and been agile, it would have been her who fell into the water today. It was freezing cold. Yet Silas was sweating profusely, clearly having rushed here in a hurry. He pulled me tightly into his arms, as if I were a rare treasure he had just recovered. But his touch was gentle, as though afraid to break me. Don't worry, my lady. I'll make sure the person who harmed you gets what they deserve. Thalia, terrified, scrambled toward Julian for help. Julian, Yinadadallah, sorry. You know me. I'm too timid to even kill an ant. How could I have pushed Silas's wife into the water? It's all a misunderstanding. Think of the child in my belly, please. You can't let anything happen to him. Julian no longer cared about Thalia's life. The only thing that mattered to him now was the child. He stared at me, almost on the verge of kneeling. Sorry. I know you have a kind heart. Thalia has suffered enough. The remaining issues can be dealt with after she gives birth. I raised an eyebrow, deliberately asking, Julian, are you sure the child in Thalia's belly is yours? Thalia, fearing Julian would start doubting again, immediately threw herself at my feet, crying in desperation. Silas's wife, you have everything now. Why do you have to force me to my death? Please, for the sake of the past, let me go. Why must women be so cruel to other women? I bent down to her level, my voice cold. You're wrong. You brought yourself to this point through your own actions. Straightening up, I turned to Julian, my voice clear. Julian, if you really want to know whether the child in Thalia's womb is yours, there's one way to find out. Zuri. Shut up. Thalia suddenly shrieked. Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Frantically trying to cover my mouth as if to stop me from speaking. I sidestepped her attack, finishing my sentence. Julian, Nima, have the imperial physician check your body. That'll clear everything up. Won't it? Moosh. Everyone's gaze immediately turned to Julian, filled with suspicion and curiosity. Julian's face burned with shame. In front of all these people. If it turned out that he had a problem, how would he ever show his face again in the capital? He forced a smile. Silas's wife. I appreciate your concern. But my health is perfectly fine. There's no need to check. I shrugged nonchalantly. Oh, if you enjoy raising someone else's child, I have no objections. Julian's heart twisted at the mocking look in my eyes. He couldn't bear the thought of being despised by Zuri. But he feared even more that everyone would learn his secret. Silas's wife. Please. Don't look at me like that. I really don't have a problem. Just then, Julian's mother entered, holding the maid's hand. Her voice was firm and unquestionable. Julian, Nabine Sai. I gave birth to you. I know your body better than anyone. To avoid gossip, let the physician check you now. All right. I'll listen to you. Mother. Physician Wang. Please go ahead. Julian's mother's words immediately eased his fears. He was desperate to prove himself in front of Zuri. As Physician Wang reached to take his pulse, Thalia, who had been lying on the ground, suddenly rolled her eyes back and collapsed, going limp like a rag doll. Serafina frowned. She didn't want the woman and child to die here at the princess's residence, which would bring unwanted scandal. She waved her hand. Physician Wang. Treat her first. Thalia's body was tough. After some treatment, she regained consciousness. Though still unconscious, had instilled biopsy. Her condition improving. Once Thalia and the child were out of danger, Julian's mother immediately urged Julian to get his pulse checked. Julian. Go ahead. I believe in your health. It will be fine. Yes, Mother. Julian held out his wrist again. Everyone held their breath, straining to hear every word Physician Wang would utter. The physician checked him again. His brow furrowed tighter with each passing moment. He hesitated, clearly reluctant to speak. Julian's heart leapt to his throat. Could it be that something was wrong with him? Julian's mother's face darkened. Physician Wang. If you have something to say, speak plainly. Could it be that my son truly has an ailment? Physician Wang took a deep breath and finally spoke the truth. Madam. Percival. He has a condition that causes infertility. Julian felt as though he had been struck by lightning. His body went limp, and he crumpled to the ground. This can't be true. How could I not be able to have children? Julian's mother clutched him tightly, her heart breaking. My son. Don't be afraid. Even if it takes everything I have, I will make sure we find a cure for you. Serafina, blunt as always, was the first to voice the obvious question. If Julian can't have children, then whose child is in Thalia's belly? The question struck Julian like a dagger, and in that moment, the truth dawned on him. His eyes bulged, bloodshot and wild, and with a beast-like roar, he lunged at the unconscious Thalia on the bed, his iron gripped tight and around her neck once more. Slut! How dare you cuckold me? I'll kill you. Thalia had actually been awake for some time, but she had pretended to be asleep, unsure how to end the situation. Now, with her life on the line, she could no longer keep up the act. Desperately, she clawed at Julian's hand. Julian. Listen to me. Please. Let me explain. Serafina, not yet tired of the drama, quickly called for someone to pull the crazed Julian off. She asked the question everyone else was thinking. Thalia. Julian has been nothing but loyal to you. So why did you betray him? Did you know all along that he couldn't have children? So you found someone else to father your child? Thalia knew she couldn't keep up the lie any longer and began to cry, spilling the truth. Ever since I married Julian, I've been taking tonics, hoping to bear him a child. 2 months ago, I fainted after drinking some medicine. When I woke up, I discovered that a lowly actor had defiled me. She covered her face and cried, woo woo woo. I'm the victim here. Julian, Yemet. I've already aborted the bastard child. Can't we just love in peace now? Julian's eyes turned bloodshot with fury. His body trembling with hatred. You filthy whore. I wish I could eat your flesh and drink your blood. In that moment, he regretted it. All he had ruined Zuri's heart for this worthless woman. Everyone in the room was sharp enough to immediately notice the flaw in Thalia's story. Serafina scoffed. Oh? How did that actor get into Julian's family? And who put the medicine in your soup? Thalia's eyes darted nervously. And she turned to Julian's mother for help. Mother-in-law. You invited that actor to perform at the family gathering. You have to support your daughter-in-law. Julian's mother rubbed her aching temples. Her voice cold. Thalia. You've brought shame upon yourself. No one can protect you now. I'll give Julian enough silver for you to live off. But anything beyond that is too much to ask. Thalia wasn't about to give up her position as the young madam of the Julian family. Her eyes reddened. And she went all in. Mother-in-law. If you're this heartless, don't blame me for tearing off the mask. Julian's mother's face darkened. She's gone mad. Someone. Gag her and drag her away. Thalia violently shook off the servants. Her voice sharp and high-pitched. Don't touch me. If you won't leave me a way out, then let's all perish together. She pointed an accusing finger at Julian's mother. Shrieking. Old witch. Stop playing coy. You deliberately hired that actor to seduce me. Then sent Julian away. Was it all part of your plan to get me pregnant with a bastard child? Her words were like a thunderclap, stunning everyone in the room. They all exchanged bewildered looks. Eyes nearly popping out. Julian was Julian's mother's flesh and blood. What could she possibly gain by doing this? Julian's mother felt a wave of dizziness from the shot and almost collapsed. But Julian rushed to catch her. Poisonous woman. How dare you slander my mother? I'll make you wish you were never born. No one believed Thalia's words. But I did. In my past life. Julian's mother's every action seemed suspicious. It was almost as if she had deep, unspoken hatred for Julian. But why would a mother go to such lengths to destroy her own child? Thalia laughed madly. Her voice grating and deranged. Julian, Mania. You fool. If your mother truly cared for you, would she force you to have a physical checkup in front of everyone? If it were necessary, she should have arranged for a private doctor. She pointed at herself violently. And this? You want to marry me, a lowly maid, as your legitimate wife. And the whole city is laughing at you. So why does she alone support it? She's not doing it for you. She's trying to destroy you. To push you into an abyss. Thalia's blood-coursed accusation left Julian speechless. He staggered back a few steps, drained of color. His eyes locked on his mother. Mother. Thalia's lying, right? You didn't do any of this. Did you? His voice trembled uncontrollably. Julian's mother reached out as if to touch his face. But he turned away so suddenly that her hand froze in midair. With a heavy sigh, she looked at him with sorrow. Ah, foolish son. What mother doesn't love her child? Don't listen to Thalia's instigation. I allowed you to marry a maid because I didn't want you to miss out on true love because of societal pressures. Thalia screamed. Don't listen to her lies. I saw it with my own eyes. Her personal maid secretly put something in your late-night meal. Your infertility. Perhaps. It's her doing. Just when Julian's heart had been softened by his mother's words. Thalia's accusation shattered everything. His eyes shattered. And step by step, he approached his mother. His voice barely audible. Squeezed through his clenched teeth. Mother. Tell me the truth. What have you really done to me? Don't force me to. Go to the authorities. Julian's mother. Staring at Julian's face, which resembled a woman she knew, suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. Since I can't hide it any longer, I might as well tell you the truth. You're not my son. You're the bastard child of a whore. Her eyes glinted with venom. Her voice shrill. Do you know what? Every time I look at your eyes, which are just like hers, I want to gouge them out. A bastard from a whore. It's no wonder you're blind and deaf to everything. You insist on raising a maid to be your wife. Since you want to dig your own grave. As your mother, I'll give you a little push. Julian felt as though the sky had collapsed. He was a bastard? No, mother. You're lying to me, right? Julian cried, falling to his knees. I'm your real son. How could my birth mother be a woman like that? Shut up. I never gave birth to an ungrateful, foolish wretch like you. Your father did everything to give you, the bastard, the status of a legitimate son, even replacing my real child. Julian's mother interrupted fiercely, her eyes full of burning hatred. She laughed, cold and horrifying. I'm alive to make you and your family pay for this blood debt, to ruin your reputation. You really are useless. Even without my help, you'd still ruin yourself. In that moment, Julian realized that his career's success in his past life had all been thanks to Zuri's subtle maneuvering behind the scenes. While he had been too busy with Thalia, indulging in romance, he had no idea how much Zuri had sacrificed, taking all the bullets for him. How foolish he had been. Without Zuri, he was nothing. Overwhelmed by fear, Julian crawled forward, clinging desperately to his mother's leg. His humility as low as dust. Mother, you raised me for 20 years. Your kindness surpasses all. Let's forget everything and live like before. Can we? He no longer dared to bring up the issue of his infertility. The thought of his birth mother being a prostitute made him wish she could die on the spot. Julian's mother's eyes burned with hatred, each word poisonous. Dream on. I will never forgive you and your father. Madam, you've misunderstood. What you saw back then was not the truth. Percival rushed in, panic written all over his face. Gazing at Percival's still handsome face, Lenore's heart twisted with pain, and tears streamed down her cheeks. She had once been the treasured sack and daughter of the vice minister's household. Yet it was his face that had captivated her heart, leading her to marry him despite her better judgment. Her own appearance was average, with a slightly plump figure. Even though she managed the household flawlessly, nothing could stop the growing disdain in Percival's eyes. When she discovered his secret, that he had been keeping a courtesan as his mistress, she had already raised Julian as her own son for 13 years. From that day on, she had harbored a burning desire for revenge. And today, she had finally reached the breaking point. Lenore's voice was hoarse. Percival, I do not ask for your love, nor will I object to your mistress. But you should never have taken my child away from me. Tell me, what did you do with my flesh and blood? Or have you killed him already? Percival's expression was one of mock sorrow. My lady, you've gone mad since giving birth. You've been plagued with hysteria. What mistress? What courtesan? It's all in your head. The child you bore was Julian. Have you forgotten your medication? Come, let me take you home. Several of the maids quickly joined in. Yes, my lady. We've served you for over 20 years. We were there when you gave birth. It was definitely Julian. With Percival being a pillar of the prestigious King Liu clan, and supported by these loyal servants, the onlookers instinctively believed him. Julian's mother. Surely, heading to Shulwi. You've misunderstood? Julian comes from a scholarly family. How could he engage in such disgraceful acts? Exactly. Even a tiger wouldn't eat its own cub. If he wanted the son of a mistress to be the heir, wouldn't he just tell you they were twins? Why would he throw away his own flesh and blood? The words madness and delusions bombarded Lenore, making her head throb painfully. Her vision blurred, and she began to doubt herself. Could it be that my memory is wrong? Did I truly harm my own son, leaving him with no heirs? A mother would never mistake her own child. Would she? My gaze flicked between Lenore and Julian, recalling the things Lenore had said. Suddenly, something flashed in my mind. I quickly leaned over to Serafina and whispered a few words. Her eyes flickered, and she immediately gestured for someone to bring something. Soon, without a low sigh, a scroll was placed in front of us. Lenore, on the verge of breaking down, pulled a dagger from her sleeve and pressed it to her throat. Tears fell like rain. Julian, I'm sorry. The only way to atone is with my death. Julian's mother. Wait. Please look at this painting first, I commanded sharply, abruptly unfurling the scroll in front of her. Everyone gathered curiously, and as they saw the image, there was a collective gasp. Heavens! It's her. The court saying who was the most beautiful woman in the capital 20 years ago. I heard someone paid her ransom to make her a concubine mine. Could it be that person was Julian? One person exclaimed in shock. Another pointed at the painting. Then at Julian. His eyes wide. Look. The eyebrows. The eyes. They're like a perfect match. It's uncanny. The words were like a thunderclap. My God. It's true. Julian's mother. It's all true. The truth was revealed clearly in the eyes of the woman and the painting eyes, so much like Julian's. Percival's face turned pale as he heard the uproar around him. He glared at me in fury. Zuri. Because Julian has tarnished your reputation. You dared to slander my name with nothing but a painting. What proof do you have? Julian, too, looked at me with sorrow. Zuri. You've always protected and helped me in the past. Why would you push me into the abyss today? Serafina stepped forward with languid grace, positioning herself between us. She raised an eyebrow. Julian, Lukahan alosai. Julian, Lamenar alosai. Why are you both so agitated? I simply have a hobby of collecting portraits of beautiful women. I brought it out for everyone to admire. Zuri didn't say anything. Serafina and I exchanged a knowing glance. The ironclad proof and witnesses from years ago that could expose Percival's crimes had long been erased. Today, the painting was simply to prevent Lenore from being blinded by Percival's manipulation and destroying herself out of guilt. Lenore, clutching the painting, slowly began to clear the confusion in her eyes. All that remained was cold, biting hatred and sorrow. Percival, seeing his carefully cultivated reputation crumble, hastily tried to defend himself. My lady, don't be misled by this woman. The resemblance is purely coincidental. Julian. He looks like you. Too. Lenore scoffed bitterly. Do you believe that yourself? How could a plain woman like me possibly give birth to a son as handsome as your Panan? Percival scrambled for an explanation. But before he could speak, Lenore's demeanor changed suddenly. Her sharpness faded. And she softened, even extending her hand toward him. Percival sighed. It's over. Let's go home. Today's events can be dismissed as a bad dream. Percival, overjoyed, rushed to her side, eager to support her. My lady, I'm so glad you've come to your senses. The others are just jealous of our son's brilliance. They're trying to frame us. But before he could finish his sentence, Lenore's eyes flashed with cold fury. She twisted her wrist, and the dagger that had been hidden in her sleeve flashed like a streak of icy light, plunging with deadly precision into Percival's lower abdomen. Ah! Percival's anguished scream echoed, shattering the snowflakes clinging to the branches outside the window. Lenore's voice was cold as ice. Percival, I won't kill you. Instead, I'll let you live in this misery as punishment. As for my child, I failed to protect you. Now, I'll join you. With that, Lenore stabbed the blood-stained dagger into her own heart. She collapsed into the pool of blood, the corners of her lips curling into a faint, relieved smile. Perhaps this was a moment Lenore had rehearsed in her heart 1,000 times. Percival was utterly ruined, beyond any hope of recovery. I stared at Lenore's blood-soaked body, my heart filled with mixed emotions. If I had known the truth in my past life, perhaps I wouldn't have stopped her from destroying the Julian family. A weight suddenly pressed down on my shoulder, and a warm hand gently enveloped me. My lady, let's go home. Julian staggered in front of me, his eyes filled with the last vestige of hope. Zuri, the Julian family's reputation is destroyed. Are you satisfied now? Could you give me one more chance? I looked at him with cold, frosty eyes, my gaze piercing through his hollow pleas. The downfall of the Julian family is their own doing. You'll have to live with the consequences. I tightened my hold on Silas's arm and walked away without looking back, taking advantage of the moment. Thalia threw herself at Julian's feet, cradling her slightly bulging belly, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness. Julian, Niliwe, don't be sad. I'll always be here for you. Since you're no longer able to have children, why not treat the one in my belly as your own? Julian lowered his gaze, casting a look of disgust at her. His voice was cold as ice. Take her away. As the servants dragged the crying Thalia away, Julian abruptly lifted his head, his gaze fixed on Zuri and Silas as they walked away together. His fist clenched in his sleeves, nails digging into his palms, leaving crescent-shaped blood marks. Zuri, no matter what it takes, I will reclaim you. Lenore's death enraged the Lin family. Lin Shilang submitted multiple memorials to demand justice for his tragically deceased daughter and the grandson who didn't survive. But too much time had passed. And there was no evidence. No witnesses. The court scene from 20 years ago had vanished without a trace. And the person who had redeemed her wasn't Percival, but an elderly wealthy merchant. Percival insisted that Lenore had gone mad and denied ever fathering that child. Perhaps Lenore had foreseen this outcome all along, planning her revenge in her own way. The Emperor had not yet completely abandoned the Julian family, and since Percival had already been discarded by Lenore, he was only removed from his position without further consequences for Julian. Percival, aware that his political career was shattered, poured the remnants of the Julian family's connections and dwindling assets into Julian, betting everything on him. Yet, the Julian family had offended the general's residence, the Grand Tutor's residence, and the Minister of Right's residence. In the end, Julian was offered only the post of a county magistrate in a remote and desolate region. On the day he left the capital, he stood by the door of the Silas family's shop, having calculated that I would come to inspect. Hannah immediately tensed when she saw him and stepped in front of me. Julian, keep your distance from my lady. Julian forced a self-mocking smile. Zuri, I'm leaving the capital. I'm here to say goodbye. You were right, my Julian family's downfall is all of our own making. He paused, his eyes filled with concern. Zuri, while I'm away, you must take care of yourself. But don't worry. With my past memories and abilities, I'll be back in the capital before long. My voice was as cold as ice. Julian, whatever happens to you has nothing to do with me. Don't ever appear before me again. Julian stumbled, heartbroken, his voice trembling. Zuri, don't you know? In our past life, we were husband and wife. We respected each other all our lives. I truly love you. Can't you forgive me just once? Julian, stop disgusting me with your cheap love. My eyes were like shards of ice, and every word was like a dagger. I will never forgive you. Don't hold on to any false hopes. Hannah, let's go. Since I found out I was pregnant, Silas was on edge, never letting me out of his sight, as if he wanted to carry me in his arms to keep me safe from any harm. My in-laws gave me all their attention, and every day felt like living in a honey pot. But I knew that as long as the mastermind behind Silas' framed charge remained at large, he would always be in danger. For his safety, I told him about my rebirth and shared the key moments from my past life, including the false charges of treason that he had unjustly borne. Silas held my hand tightly, his gaze intense. Don't worry, my lady. In this life, with you and our child, I will never let anything happen to me. I looked into Silas' handsome eyes, my tone serious. I believe you. But remember, a tree that stands out will be struck by the wind. You must guard not only against political enemies but also against those closest to you. Jealousy is a poison that can make people unrecognizable. Never let your guard down. Silas, moved, pulled me into his embrace. To have a wife like you, what more could a man want? My lady, the greatest luck of my life is marrying you. Silas wasn't one to express his love openly, but every time he spoke like this, my cheeks would flush, and my heart would race. After this heartfelt conversation, our bond as husband and wife grew stronger. Thanks to the knowledge I had from my previous life, I was able to give Silas advice and guidance. His work was more efficient and better than before, and he gained the Emperor's favor and recognition much faster than in the past. When I was 5 months pregnant, Silas was ordered south to oversee the salt tax case in Jiangban. It was spring, with flowers blooming everywhere. Sarafina, worried that I would be bored at home, specially invited me to go out for a spring outing. By now, my belly had grown quite a bit, and Sarafina carefully helped me sit in a pavilion to rest. She gently placed her hand on my belly, her smile soft. Zuri, we've agreed. right? When the baby is born, I'm going to be the godmother. I smiled in response. With a godmother like you, the baby will be blessed. Serafina's eyes curved into a smile. But suddenly her tone changed, laced with a hint of grievance. Sorry. Your belly is so big now. And Silas is still only focused on his work. Don't you think he's neglecting you? I understood that Serafina was concerned for me, not trying to stir trouble. I shook my head. Serafina. He's a capable official, dedicated to serving the country and the people. He shouldn't be held back by personal feelings. To my surprise, Serafina then asked a much more sensitive question. Her brow furrowed. Sorry. Do you think my father, the emperor, is a good emperor? The question sent a chill down my spine. And I nervously looked around. Even though she was a princess, discussing the emperor privately was not a trivial matter. Serafina, amused by my nervousness, giggled. All right. All right. I was just asking casually. Look at you. So scared. Anyway, having fulfilled why I'm sorry. With your belly getting bigger, you'll need some new clothes. Let's go shopping. I gently patted my pounding heart. Something felt off with Serafina. She seemed different. In the bustling marketplace, vendors were shouting their wares. Serafina linked her arm through mine, about to enter a shop when a woman, dressed provocatively, blocked our path. I froze when I saw her face. It was Thalia. I had heard about her from Hannah. After being brought back to the Julian family by Julian, she had been force-fed large quantities of safflower, which damaged her body, leaving her unable to bear children. Julian, my Jimisao, still not content, sold her into a brothel. It was said that she thrived there, though she wasn't a great beauty. Her openness and variety made her popular with a few patrons. Now, she was the one approaching me. What did she want? Thalia trusted her waist, exaggerated curtsy, and then pulled out a peace charm from her chest, deliberately waving it in front of me. Madam Silas. This is something Silas accidentally left at my place. I've come to return it to its rightful owner. Her voice was sweet with an edge of deliberate provocation. Serafina, with her fiery temper, raised her hand without a second thought and slapped Thalia across the face. It seems the lesson from last time didn't teach you anything. You dare come here to sow discord? What do you think you are? Does Silas even care for you? Serafina scolded harshly. Thalia, covering her cheek, cried pitifully. Your Highness. You're wrong. This really is Silas's. And the safety amulet even as Madame Silas's handwritten birth details. Serafina gestured for someone to bring the amulet over. She took out the slip of paper inside and studied it carefully, reading the characters over and over. Her brow furrowed as she examined it more closely. Sorry, she said slowly. This handwriting. It really looks like yours. I swayed slightly, unable to believe what I was hearing. This amulet had indeed been personally made by me for Silas at the temple. But how could it be in Thalia's hands? Serafina quickly supported me. Sorry. Don't get angry. Be careful with the baby. I took a deep breath, forcing down the swirling doubts in my mind. My rationality told me Silas would never betray me. There must be some other explanation. Trust was the most important thing in a marriage. And I couldn't let a few words from an outsider sow seeds of doubt in my heart. I forced myself to remain calm as I spoke. Thalia, what does a safety amulet prove? Maybe Silas simply lost it. And you happened to find it. Thalia immediately shook her head like a rattledrum. Madam Silas. Out of respect for our past as master and servant, I truly couldn't bear to see you deceived by Silas. Which is why I risked telling you the truth. Her tone shifted, her face quickly adopting a smug expression. And she raised her chin, deliberately provoking me. There's an old saying. A wife is not as good as a concubine. And a concubine is not as good as a mistress. Men now. They're all the same at heart. The more proper they seem on the surface, the wilder they are in bed. Someone like you, a noble lady, can't let go in bed. I suppose Silas prefers someone like me. Doesn't he? Her tone was laced with mockery. After all, I'm cheap and easy to use, without the need for commitment. What man would turn me down? Oh, And both of your men, in the end, fell for someone like me. How tragic for you. I pushed my pregnant belly forward and took a step closer to Thalia, raising my hand and delivering a sharp slap to her face. Thalia, not all men are the same. You really deserve a slap for your filthy mouth. You must have sneaked away. I'll have someone send you back where you came from. Thalia struggled, being held back by the housemaids of Silas's family. Sorry. You're prettier than me. Of higher status than me. So what? But when it comes to conquering men, you can't compare to me. I didn't spare her another glance and hooked my arm with Serafina's. Let's go. Once we entered the tailor shop, Serafina, noticing my gloom, couldn't help but try to comfort me. Sorry. If Silas really did something wrong, just divorce him. I'll take care of you and the baby. Her words made me laugh. Serafina, I believe in Silas. He would never have anything to do with Thalia. Serafina sighed. Sorry. Don't trust men too much. After all, you can never truly know what's in their hearts. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I reassured her. I decided to keep my thoughts about the safety amulet to myself for now and not share them with anyone. I wanted to wait for Silas to return and ask him about it directly. Time passed quickly, and for months flew by. The baby was about to be born. So I had stayed indoors for the past few days to avoid any accidents. Serafina had also set aside her usual playful mood and remained at home to keep me company. One day, a servant suddenly came in to report that Julian had come to see me. Serafina immediately understood and explained to me. Sorry. It must be that Julian has returned. During his time as magistrate, he led the efforts to repair the levees and fight the flood. He almost got swept away by the water and ultimately saved a large amount of farmland. The emperor praised him greatly and specifically called him back. I nodded. If Julian didn't become obsessed with love, he was indeed capable. I could only hope that he would put his talents to good use. Tell Julian that I am not seeing guests today and ask him not to come again. The servant hesitated before handing me a blood-stained handkerchief. Madam, Julian said. He found this on the official road. He also said, if you want to know more, you should go see him. My heart jolted. I staggered to take the handkerchief. This was clearly the one I had embroidered for Silas. Could something have happened to him? Silas had gone to Gyeonggan to investigate the salt tax, which had affected many powerful figures. Too many people wanted to see him dead on his way back to the capital. Serafina quickly half-embraced me, gently persuading. Sorry. Don't rush. Let's go out and find Julian to get to the bottom of this. I held her hand tightly, shaking my head in resolve. I won't see him. I need to go back to my family's house first. I couldn't let anyone lead me around by the nose. And I couldn't risk my baby. Serafina, her heart taking, squeezed my hand back. Sorry. I'll go back to the princess's manor and have people search for Silas. He wouldn't let anything happen to himself for you and the baby. I nodded, trying to suppress the panic rising within me. Don't worry. Neither I nor the baby will be harmed. As soon as I arrived at the general's residence, I immediately told my father about the possible danger Silas was in. My father's face darkened. Daughter, I will send people to find him right away. Don't be too upset. My mother, holding my hand, comforted me gently. Don't worry, my dear. Your husband is a good man, and fate will protect him. The most important thing now is for you to safely deliver the baby. Mother, I understand. Before I could finish speaking, a sudden, sharp pain gripped my stomach. I gasped in pain. Ah! My stomach. It hurts so much. My mother's face turned pale, and she urgently shouted outside. Quick! Call for the midwife. My daughter is going into labor. Since it was my first pregnancy and I wasn't yet full term, the labor was extremely difficult. The intense pain tore through me, nearly robbing me of consciousness. My mother stayed by my side, gripping my hand tightly, watching as the pain rained the color from my face. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Madam, it's not good. The baby's position is incorrect. I'm afraid. The midwife, knowing how dearly the general's family cherished this daughter, could not bring herself to utter the more dangerous words. My mother's face drained of all color, her lips trembling as she said with difficulty, "The baby. We can lose the baby. But the mother. The mother must be saved." At that critical moment, Serafina's voice rang out like a heavenly blessing. "Aunt, don't worry. I brought the best physician from the palace who specializes in difficult deliveries." My mother clutched at her like a lifeline. "Your Highness. Thank you so much." Though there were tears in Serafina's eyes, her voice was unwavering and firm. "Aunt, please don't hold back. Zuri is my best friend, and I'll do everything I can to protect her and the baby." With the imperial doctor working tirelessly, after 3 agonizing hours of waiting, the cry of a baby finally pierced the heavy air. At the sound, my exhausted body felt the weight lift from my heart, and I immediately sank into a deep, peaceful sleep. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Serafina gently rocking the baby in her arms. Seeing me awake, she quickly brought the child to me. "Sorry. You've been through so much. The baby is healthy, so don't worry." I looked at the tiny, soft bundle wrapped in cloth, my gaze softening involuntarily. "Serafina, why don't you choose a nickname for the baby? If you hadn't brought the doctor in time, I don't know if we would have made it through." Serafina's voice trembled slightly as she replied, "All right. I'll name him. How about an N? I wish him peace and safety all his life." "An N. It's such a lovely name," I whispered, full of gratitude. Just then, Hannah's voice, full of joy, rang from outside. "Miss, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. The master has been found." My heart leapt to my throat. "How is he? Is he badly hurt?" Hannah quickly replied, "Don't worry, miss. Thankfully, kiddingfully, the people your father sent arrived in time and rescued him from the men in black. He's injured, but the doctor says he's not in any danger. He'll recover with some rest." Hearing that Silas was out of danger, the knot in my chest loosened, and I finally felt at ease. Silas was unconscious for a full 7 days. On the 8th morning, he finally woke up. When he learned that I had nearly died in childbirth from the fear of his condition, he was filled with self-reproach and guilt. Weakly, he grasped my hand. "My lady. It's my fault. I've hurt you, and the baby. Please. Hit me to vent your anger." I hurriedly grasped his hand, stopping him from harming himself. "Don't say that. You were serving the emperor. How could I blame you? But you must explain. How did the peace charm I gave you end up in Balia's hands?" "She used it to provoke me, claiming you two had some connection." Silas's face showed shock, and he quickly explained. "My lady. I'm so sorry. The charm was lost the day I left the capital. I swear I've never done anything to wrong you. During this trip, I was with the heir of Yang Ningmar Qi the whole time. He can vouch for me." I nodded. "My father has already investigated. You didn't go to the brothel. And I believe you." He sighed in relief, but then looked confused. "But the peace charm was something you personally asked for me. I've kept it with me all this time. How could it have gotten lost?" I followed his lead and analyzed the situation. If it's lost, it's lost. But to have Thalia find it and use it to stir trouble, it's too coincidental. I suspect someone took it on purpose. Besides the heir of Yang Ningmar Qi, who else was with you on this trip?" Silas immediately understood what I meant. "Jax. My fellow townsman. He's the son of the magistrate of Qingping County." I asked. "What kind of person is Jax? Can he be trusted?" Silas thought for a moment. "He's helped me a lot. When my family was poor, his father was the magistrate, and my father was just a lowly clerk. He often helped me out. He's one of my most trusted friends." I furrowed my brows. Logically, someone like that shouldn't harm you. But I still feel something's off. Jax comes from a better background, has helped you for years. But when you became a top scholar, he didn't make much progress. Perhaps he's jealous of you." I paused before adding, "Until we have solid proof. This is just suspicion. Keep an eye on him. I have a feeling he's involved. I wonder if he has any connection to the men who tried to kill you." Silas held my hand tightly, his eyes resolute. "I understand, my lady. Don't worry. I'll handle it carefully. Silas carried out his mission excellently, not only eliminating a dangerous faction but also replenishing the national treasury. When it came time for rewards, the emperor broke the norm and promoted him to assistant minister of the Ministry of War. Though Great Yu was rich, its military strength was weak. The northern frontier cavalry was fierce and constantly raided the northern borders, making it a major concern for the emperor. Silas pored over historical records and decided to build an elite force for Great Yu. He initiated military reforms, improving the bow and arrow, designing a crossbow with a longer range that could shoot 5 arrows in succession, and inventing a powerful fire gun to strengthen the border defenses. He also improved the city building process, making the walls sturdier. At the same time, he boldly recommended Orion, the heir of the Yangning Marquis, to guard the northern frontier. This appointment sparked strong opposition in the court. Ministers doubted Orion's abilities, fearing that he, being a pampered young man, might surrender when the army was under pressure. Had it not been for my memories of the past life, I might have thought he wasn't up to the task. However, the emperor stood firm, insisting that Orion be sent to the northern frontier to ensure victory. The emperor also sent Silas with my father to supervise the war at the frontier. After several offensive and defensive battles, the northern frontier cavalry was heavily wounded, and victory seemed imminent. Just at this critical moment, a decree suddenly arrived, calling Silas back to the capital urgently. I knew, inevitably, having fulfilled my psi, the time had come. Silas had just returned to the capital, and before he even entered his home, he was urgently summoned to the palace. He had only time to have his subordinates deliver a letter to me. Inside the letter was a thin piece of paper, an official divorce document. I understood his intentions. He must have feared that our efforts might fail, and this was his way of protecting me and my family. Holding our 3-year-old son, I felt a surge of determination. Silas, we are married, and we should fight together. I entrusted the child to my mother, donned a black travel cloak, grabbed my sword, and disappeared into the dark night. The next day, without hesitation, I ascended the drum platform and struck the drum with all my strength. The censor recognized me and hurriedly advised, Zuri, Silas has divorced you. Why do this? You should know that if the evidence is insufficient, bringing this to the emperor could lead to your execution. I replied firmly, Sir, Silas was wronged. I have the evidence. The censor, who actually admired Silas for his character and abilities, did not believe he had committed treason. All right. But according to the rules, before meeting the emperor, you must roll over the punishment board. Without hesitation, I responded, I'll roll. Zuri, wait. A familiar voice suddenly rang out. It was Julian, hurrying towards me. 3 years had passed since I last saw him, and he had clearly matured. No longer the restless man he once was. He now carried himself with more composure and confidence. Zuri, don't be foolish. Silas is as good as dead. Don't throw your life away for him. Look at me, I've changed. I'm now a 5th-rank official. And things are only going to get better. Marry me. Let's start fresh and live a good life. Will you? I looked at him with unwavering determination. My resolve unshaken. Julian, go back. I won't go with you. Silas is my husband. No matter what happens, I will face it with him. Julian stared at me, seeing the firmness in my eyes, his heart filling with regret. This woman, who should have been his wife, had been pushed into the arms of another by his own hands. He knew Zuri's character. Once she set her mind on something, she would never look back. It made him anxious, having fulfilled my shush, pacing in agitation like a restless ant on a hot stove. Zuri, have you always thought I was lying to you? But I really have memories of my past life. Silas's end will be tragic. I cut him off. My tone resolute, stop right there. Those things you remember won't happen again. Julian froze, staring at me in disbelief. His mouth slightly opened as shock overtook his expression. You've been reborn too? That's why you so readily accepted my proposal to marry Thalia, isn't it? Julian, it's over between us. Talking about this now is meaningless. Don't come here to disturb my life anymore. I turned away, no longer paying attention to him, resolutely stepping onto the wooden board. The sharp pain of the nails biting into my skin pierced through my body instantly. I bit down on my lip, swallowing my cries, blood seeping from the corner of my mouth. Every inch of my flesh screamed with agony. But I pushed through it, rolling forward relentlessly. The inspecting censor, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but feel moved. Silas was truly fortunate to have such a wife, one who would endure such torment for him. Few men could claim such a devoted partner. Half an hour later, drenched in blood and supported by palace servants, I finally stood before the emperor. Fighting through the pain, I presented the evidence I had painstakingly collected. Your Majesty, the letter that was used as evidence of treason, written to the northern border king, did not come from Silas. It was forged by Jax. These are the practice drafts I found in his study that he hadn't yet destroyed. The emperor nodded slightly. Silas has already submitted other proof of his innocence. With your physical evidence added, I am more certain that he has been wronged. Bring Jax here. Your Majesty is wise. I bowed quickly, and the tension in my heart finally eased. Supported by the servants, I stepped aside. Jax was soon brought into the hall. Before any torture could begin, he immediately confessed, Your Majesty, I deserved death. I was jealous of Silas's favor with your Majesty, and plotted to ruin him. The emperor's gaze was as sharp as a knife. Tell the truth. Who is the mastermind behind this? If you withhold anything, I will punish your entire family. The words, entire family, struck like thunder. Jax collapsed to the ground. He didn't care about his own death, but he couldn't let his entire family suffer because of him. In a panic, he quickly cried out, Your Majesty, the mastermind is Father. A clear voice interrupted his words. The emperor frowned in displeasure. What nonsense is this? Seraphina, how dare you come to the court? Father, I have something to say. The ministers, aware of how much the emperor doted on this daughter, dared not stop her, despite her actions clearly breaking protocol. Seraphina walked smoothly to her father's side, a bright smile on her face. The emperor, shaking his head in resignation, spoke with a tone of affection, Seraphina, stop being so reckless. Whatever you have to say, we can discuss it after court. It's too late. Before she could finish, a cold flash of light came from her sleeve. A sharp dagger was pressed firmly against the emperor's neck. Seraphina, you would kill your father? The emperor growled, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and shock. The ministers immediately panicked, rushing to dissuade her. Princess, His Majesty has treated you with such favor. How can you commit such a monstrous act? Tears shimmered on Seraphina's beautiful face as they rolled down her cheeks. I never wanted to do this. But the wise monarch before you killed the man I loved. The emperor's rage only intensified. Nonsense. He was just a monk. And you are the most esteemed princess of Duwayu. How could he be worthy of you? Father, I don't care about status or titles. And he saved your life. But you, for the sake of royal face, you killed him and also destroyed the child growing inside me. Her words hit me like a thunderclap, finally bringing clarity. No wonder when Thalia had said, true love shouldn't care about background. Seraphina had looked at her with understanding. And no wonder she always looked at my child. With tears in her eyes. She was mourning the child she had lost. The emperor's voice was cold and unyielding. Seraphina, he saved me. And I have rewarded him. But the dignity of the royal family cannot be tarnished. If you are going to kill me over this, then go ahead. Seraphina didn't push the dagger forward. Instead, she turned her gaze toward me. Her eyes filled with a desperate determination. Sorry, can you answer me now? The question I asked you earlier? Is my father really a good emperor? I didn't want to see Seraphina make a foolish decision. So I quickly tried to soothe her. Your Highness, your father has reclaimed lost territories, reduced the people's taxes, promoted talented individuals, and never allowed the princesses to be married off to foreign lands. He is an exceptional ruler. But there were words left unsaid in my heart. He was also arbitrary. suspicious, and had once killed loyal ministers. But for an emperor, how could you simply label him as and or bad? Tears blurred Serafina's vision. Zuri, I believe you. Come here. I need to tell you something. With great difficulty, I moved closer to her. My body still racked with pain. Her voice trembled. Zuri, I hate my father. That's why I wanted to destroy the talented pillars of Dyu. To ruin the empire. Jax was the one I ordered to frame Silas. But I never intended to hurt you. I first had Jax steal Silas's protective talisman and give it to Thalia to provoke you. Hoping you would divorce him. But your love for him was too strong. And it failed. Then sorry. Before Silas returned to the city, I found him and persuaded him to write the divorce papers himself. Fortunately, having fulfilled what I said, he truly loved you. And even without my prompting, he planned to do it. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at me. Zuri, I almost caused you to lose your husband. You must hate me now. I shook my head, my voice trembling with emotion. Serafina, I don't want to hate you. I just wish for you to live a good life. People are complex, full of emotions. Serafina had once shown me sincere kindness, making it impossible for me to see her as an enemy. But she had nearly caused me to lose my closest family. And for that, I felt I should hate her. But Serafina merely shook her head weakly. It's too late. Since the moment my beloved was beheaded, my heart died with him. Zuri, what I owe you, I'll repay with this act of saving your life. Before I could understand her meaning, she suddenly seized my hand and, with a sudden, forceful motion, drove the dagger into her own heart. Don't. I cried out in horror, throwing myself onto her collapsing body, clutching her tightly. Zuri, don't cry. Her breath was faint, but there was a smile of relief on her face. Our family of 3 will soon be reunited. You should be happy for me. With those words, her arm fell limp, and her breath stilled forever. The emperor closed his eyes deeply, a single tear slipping from the corner of his eye. Weary, he spoke. Zuri, take her body down and give her a proper burial. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. Your Majesty, having fulfilled my obsession. I responded softly. Numb. I held Serafina's cold body and walked slowly down the long, silent palace corridor. This path had once been filled with our laughter and joy. Now, in the snowstorm, I was the only one left. My figure alone in the storm. Serafina had once told me that her favorite days were when it snowed, and her greatest joy was watching the plum blossoms in the snow. It was also here, in a snowy plum orchard, that she had first met her beloved. She had told me, too, that if she ever left this world, she hoped to be buried in that same plum orchard outside the city. Silas quietly adjusted my cloak, standing beside me as we gazed at the newly erected tombstones. There were 3 plain stones, without inscription, standing quietly in the snow. His voice was low and soothing. My lady, the princess has finally been reunited with her lover and their unborn child. We should be happy for her. I nodded softly, whispering to the stones. Serafina, may you rest in peace. On the way back to the manor, a crowd had gathered along the road, whispering in hushed tones. As we approached, I saw a frozen body lying in the snow. Hey! Isn't this Julian's wife? Thalia? How did she freeze to death here? You're behind on the news. She was sold to a brothel by Julian. And they say she caught a disease and was thrown out by the madam to die. Seeing Thalia's tragic end stirred a complex mix of emotions within me. While she was certainly detestable, upon reflection, she wasn't entirely to blame. Julian had first given her the illusion of becoming his true wife, only to later push her into an irreversible abyss. Moreover, when I had forced her to reveal her relationship with Jax, she had ultimately provided the evidence that Jax had framed Silas. She was hateful, pitiful, and tragic. I only hoped that in her next life, she could live more clearly and not lose herself again. I ordered her body to be taken and buried properly, granting her a final resting place. The emperor, perhaps trying to atone for his guilt towards Serafina and fulfill her final wish, bestowed upon me the saving grace she had mentioned. He granted me a golden medal of immunity from death and titled me a lady of the court, while promoting Silas to the position of second-rank minister. Jax and his accomplices were executed according to the law, receiving the punishment they deserved. As for Julian, in his frantic efforts to climb back to his former position as quickly as possible, he worked himself to exhaustion and died from illness while in office. Percival, unable to bear the shock, soon followed him in death. Justice prevailed. And in the end, good and evil were properly repaid. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. But my heart couldn't find any joy. The friend who had once laughed and shared the thoughts of youth with me would never return. Time passed swiftly. When Silas turned 40, he ascended to the position of prime minister, holding the highest rank beneath the emperor. Yet, just when everyone believed he would continue to shine in the court, he calmly submitted his resignation. He turned to me and said, "The country is stable now, and peace reigns. My lady, we can now lead the quiet, peaceful life we've always wanted." The day before my grand wedding, I took the initiative to request a decree to marry far away in Northern Way. All because, in my past life, my fiancé, the regent Prince Julian, chose my illegitimate younger sister to form a marriage alliance instead. Yet the moment her bridal sedan reached the border, she committed suicide on the spot. She declared that she loved only Julian in this life and would rather die than marry anyone else. Her death ruined the diplomatic ties between the two nations, and the Northern Way army advanced to our border in fury. But my fiancé only frowned slightly and continued his wedding preparations as if nothing had happened. Not until the moment of the ceremonial bowing did he lead tens of thousands of soldiers to forcefully seize the palace. My 10-year-old younger brother was hacked into a pile of flesh before my eyes, and I was thrown into the dungeon, tortured relentlessly. He threw my and my brother's corpses before my sister's grave and wept bitterly. Lilith, it was all because Seraphina held the title of crown princess. If not for that, how could I have missed you? Now that I've sent her down to join you, we will surely continue our fate in the next life. He then ascended the throne and became the famously devoted emperor, son through the ages. Meanwhile, my brother and I were cursed and condemned as villains for 1,000 years. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day before the alliance marriage. This time, I tore up the decree that named my sister as the bride and climbed into the bridal sedan without hesitation. Big sister, Seraphina actually chose the alliance marriage to fall on your wedding day. She clearly did it on purpose. You didn't see how she acted around the regent prince, so flirtatious. Julian is your fiancé. Yet she kept calling him brother Julian. It was disgusting. Leaning on the table for support, I panted heavily, haunted by the fear for my death. Emperor Caspian tugged at my sleeve when I stayed silent for too long. "Sister, say something? You don't want this. I'll send her away ahead of schedule." Only then did I snap back to reality and scream hoarsely. No. A few days ago, Northern Way requested a princess in marriage to establish good relations. As the crown princess, having fulfilled my obsess, I already had a betrothal one arranged by my dying father, with the regent Prince Julian. Julian issued a decree naming my only half-sister Lilith for the alliance marriage instead. In my past life, when I learned Lilith had scheduled her departure on the same day as my wedding, I was furious. My brother, outraged on my behalf, forced the date to be moved up. But the moment her bridal procession arrived at the border, Lilith took her own life. She faced the capital with fierce resolve, her expression like one dying for love. I, Lilith, love only Julian in this life. In life, I belong to him. In death, I remain his spirit. I will never marry another. The entire wedding escort was stunned. The Northern Way prince waiting at the border was stunned. He saw this as a deliberate humiliation from Southern Keon act of war. Yet when the news of Lilith's death reached the capital, Julian showed no reaction. He continued preparing for our wedding and even held me in comfort. I believed in him. I devoted myself wholeheartedly to the marriage. But on the wedding day, the man I awaited with joy turned out to be the butcher who slaughtered the palace. With one strike, he flung my brother from the dragon throne, stomping on his young body as he looked coldly at me. I knelt on the ground in a daze. clinging to his robe, begging him to spare my brother. I couldn't understand how could the man who had been so loving just the day before become so monstrous overnight. His expression remained icy as his blade pierced my brother's chest. Hot blood sprayed across my face. He said, "Serafina, did you ever think you'd meet this end when you forced Lilith into the alliance marriage?" But it had clearly been his decree. Lilith had agreed willingly. How had it become my fault? Cradling my brother's mangled body, I was thrown into the death prison by Julian's orders. For 3 whole months, I endured unspeakable torture. Boiling iron seared my hands that once played the zither and penned poetry. Julian had me tortured mercilessly. After 3 months, I finally couldn't hold on. Filled with hatred, I took my last breath. I watched as Julian laid my and my brother's corpses at Lilith's grave and sobbed, "Lilith, if Serafina hadn't been the crown princess, I never would have missed out on you. Now I've killed them both for you. In the next life, I swear I will marry you, Lilith." He stepped over our corpses to take the throne. And his love story with Lilith became alleged and passed down through the ages. But my brother and I were forever branded as evil and hated by all. This time, Julian will never rise by stepping over our corpses. I will make sure he dies a miserable death. Having resolved everything, I looked down at my brother. "Caspian, listen to your sister." After sending him away, I turned to examine the wedding dress hanging in the great hall. The fiery red cloud brocade shimmered with countless embroidered phoenixes, painstakingly crafted by over 100 seamstresses. The tail was adorned with 999 Eastern pearls, and the eyes of the phoenix were inlaid with 2 priceless rubies. Before my mother's death, knowing she wouldn't live to see my wedding, she had taken these treasures from her dowry to make this wedding dress for me. It was the only thing she left me. But in my past life, I never got to wear it. All because, big sister, this dress is so beautiful. My mother didn't leave me anything like this before she died. I turned around to see Lilith barging into the hall despite the maid's attempts to stop her. The moment I saw her, hatred surged in my chest. She didn't notice. She reached out to touch the jewels on the gown. Her face full of admiration and a flicker of envy hid and deep in her eyes. If only we shared the same mother. I'll never get to wear such fine clothing in Northern way. In my past life, I pitied her for marrying far away, never to return. I gave her the dress, only to be ruthlessly betrayed. This time, I smacked her hand away. "Did I say you could touch it? My mother would never acknowledge a daughter like you. Such misfortune. In the past, I was always kind and gracious, treating this pitiful half-sister with deep affection. Any jewels or hairpins she liked from my palace, I gave them all to her. But I never imagined and I was feeding her ambition. It was the first time Lilith had ever been rebuffed by me. She didn't expect I'd speak to her like this. She stood frozen, eyes welling with tears, body swaying as she whispered, "Big sister. So you've always looked down on me." I turned sharply and immediately saw Julian standing at the door. He rushed in like the wind and caught the faltering Lilith in his arms. Then glared at me with fury on his face. "Serafina, what did you do? Lilith is about to marry into a foreign land for the sake of you and your brother. And yet you're still bullying her here." I looked at them calmly, wondering how I could have been so blind. The 2 of them were practically embracing, and I hadn't noticed anything in my past life. I remembered the ruthless look on his face when he killed my brother in that life, and I couldn't help but clench my fists, letting out a cold laugh. Bullying her? Let her tell you how exactly did I bully her? What is it? Does the regent prince have clairvoyance or superhearing now, that you could see me bullying her from miles away? Julian frowned and followed my gaze to the Lilith in his arms. Finally realizing something was off, he let go of her waist. Lilith stepped back with grievance, dabbing at her tears while sneaking cautious glances at me. "It's not sister's fault. I've never seen such a beautiful wedding gown before." I couldn't help but reach out to touch it. Sister was right to say I was dirty. Julian frowned. "It's just a wedding dress. You could have given it to Lilith. If not for Lilith, you'd be the one marrying into the Northern way. Would you still be so calm then?" He had said something similar in my past life, which had filled me with guilt that I hadn't protected my sister. But what kind of sister was she? She was a leech. A parasite. First of all, that dress was a gift from my late mother. If she likes it, you can buy her a new one. As the regent prince, having fulfilled my say, don't tell me you can't afford even that? Second, let's be clear, the one who decreed this marriage alliance was you. Lilith herself agreed to it in front of the ministers. What? She regrets it now, and wants to guilt-trip me? Julian flicked his sleeves. Serafina, why are you being so unreasonable today? Lilith is already being wronged by marrying far away. As her sister, you should be compensating her. Yes, the order was mine. And it was for your family's sake. I came today for Lilith's dowry. The Ministry of Rights couldn't gather it in time. But the late emperor left you 300 dowry chests. I won't take all, just give Lilith 200. I sneered. Well, thank you for not taking everything. He rubbed his nose. After all, it's your dowry. When you marry me, you'll have everything. But Lilith has nothing. If you care about her so much, why don't you just marry her yourself? Please don't argue with Julian. Sister. It's all my fault. Lilith clung to Julian, looking at me timidly. Since they were already so affectionate, there was no need for me to keep playing the villain. I smiled and looked deeply into Julian's dark, abyss-like eyes. Fine. The wedding gown is hers. All 300 dowry chests to give them to her. Lilith is marrying into the Northern Way for the good of the nation. For such a great service. She deserves these worldly possessions. In fact, she should be granted a title as well. Julian was momentarily stunned. I had always been willful and fiercely protective of anything left by my parents. My sudden generosity took him by surprise. A title. Of course. She deserves it. I'll petition His Majesty to bestow upon Princess Lilith the honorary title Protector of the Nation. Lilith clung to his sleeve, crying like a rain-drenched flower. She didn't want this marriage at all. I lifted my long gown and walked up to her, dragging her out of Julian's embrace. Then, invoking the authority of a princess, I ordered Julian out. A regent prince shouldn't be troubled by the tears of palace women. Lilith is young and foolish, I'll talk some sense into her. She was about to make a scene again. So I leaned close and whispered a few words in her ear. Her eyes lit up, and just like that, she calmed down. Julian left holding her in his arms. As he reached the palace gates, he turned to look back at me. He didn't know that this would be the last time we'd ever see each other. Soon came the day of the weddings. The palace was filled with the sounds of celebration drums, music, laughter. Amid the joy, I quietly put on the wedding dress my mother had left me and stepped into the bridal sedan chair headed for the northern frontier. They had chosen this date to spite me. But instead, they ended up playing right into my hands. My little brother was still a child. Over the years, Julian had been steadily amassing military power. We couldn't confront him head-on. Our only option was to ally with external forces to take him down. The Emperor of Northern Wei had a formidable army. His soldiers were warriors who could each take on 10 men. Sitting in the sedan chair, I looked back in the direction of the palace. Next time I return, I hope it's to chop off Julian's head. As the bridal sedan gradually left the capital behind, Julian was in the palace, ready to greet his bride. He reached out and gently held the hand of the quiet, docile Serafina waiting in her chambers. This is how a gentle, obedient princess should behave. Serafina, remember to act this way from now on. I've already sent Lilith off in the bridal sedan. You won't have to argue with me over her anymore. Julian never noticed anything was amiss. Not until the lanterns were lit and he lifted the bridal veil. What greeted him was Lilith's blushing, shy face. The ceremonial stick in his hand clattered to the floor. What are you doing here? Weren't you the one going to the marriage alliance? Lilith only thought he was overly surprised. I know, Julian. You love me. And I love you too. If it weren't for Serafina threatening you with father's decree, I would have been the one you married. I never thought she would agree to go in my place. The shock on Julian's face turned into panic and fury. Outrageous. Serafina is utterly outrageous. He kicked over the table set with their wedding wine and stormed out. Someone, prepare my horse. After 2 days on the road, The bridal procession finally reached the borderlands. I looked out at the barren, desolate landscape, my heart quietly thinking of my younger brother. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a galloping horse behind me. Julian, still in his red wedding robes, hadn't even changed. He had ridden in haste to catch up. He leapt off the horse and marched up to the sedan chair, forcefully dragging me out. Serafina, you're coming back with me. I shook him off. Why? What? Now that you've got the woman you love, you're still not satisfied? Julian's veins bulged. His face twisted with fury. So it is jealousy. Do you know how worried I was when I saw the bride had been switched to Lilith? Worried? I remembered the 3 months of torture in my past life. I remembered my lifeless body thrown before Lilith's tomb. In a surge of rage, I slapped him across the face. Don't think I don't know what's going on between you two. I'm letting you have each other, just don't get in the way of my marriage. His brows furrowed. There's nothing between us. I only took care of her because she's your sister. Why are you being so suspicious? Save it. I never asked you to look after her. Don't delay my wedding. The auspicious hour was near. I turned to return to the bridal sedan. But Julian grabbed my collar and shoved me onto a horse. Serafina, you're going back whether you want to or not. He mounted the horse as well. He trapped me in front of him. The soldiers who had come to escort me were suppressed by his own men. I struggled desperately, despair surging in my chest. Suddenly, a clear male voice rang out from the distance. Let her go. She is my bride. A group of Northern Way riders clad in armor approached on fine steeds. At the front was a young man with a small braid at his temple, sharp and striking in appearance, draped in a heavy cloak. But he wasn't the same prince who had originally come to Southern Key for the marriage alliance. A flicker of apprehension passed over Julian's face. Your Highness. My apologies. There was a mishap. Serafina is my fiancée. In a few days, I'll send the true bride to you along with 5 vows and talls of silver. So he was Crown Prince Darien of Northern Way. Darien chuckled coldly. I don't care who's real or fake. You brought her here. That makes her mine. What? Is the regent trying to humiliate me into war? Julian rubbed his temples. Irritated. All of Southern Key knows Serafina was betrothed to me by the late emperor. We're deeply in love. She's just acting out like a child. I hope Prince Darien can forgive her youth. Darien casually flicked his whip. I'm not going to argue with you. But whether she goes back with you isn't your call. That's up to the princess herself, isn't it, Regent? Julian breathed a sigh of relief and nodded confidently. Of course. He turned to me. Serafina, come back with me. We'll hold the ceremony again. But I've already wed Lilith. I can't betray her. I'll make you both princesses. Equal in title. I let out a scornful laugh. Julian, have you never looked in a mirror? Ugly as you are. Where do you get the confidence? He had never heard anything like that in his life, least of all from me, who used to adore him. His face darkened instantly. What did you say? I slapped him again. I said, what makes you think you're good enough for me? Then I walked straight to Darien without hesitation. Julian's entire face twisted with rage. Fine. Serafina. Just don't come crawling back later, I won't give you another chance. A flash of admiration crossed Darien's eyes. The regent seems awfully agitated. Could it be my lady hit us or Spot? Julian's face turned red, then black, then green with fury. He barked at his soldiers to retreat. Darien turned to me with a gentle gaze. Princess, would you honor me by riding with me? I adjusted my wedding gown with grace. Why not? He laughed heartily and pulled me up onto his horse. Yeah. In front of Darien's tent, red silk carpets were laid out like a sea of fire. He helped me down gently. I heard that in Southern Key, weddings are full of red silk. So I had these brought in from the border city for you. His respect pleased me. I looked up at him. Are we holding the wedding today? Darien nodded. Everything is ready. The moment you agree, we'll be married. I've admired you for a long time. When your brother, the young emperor, sent word that the princess was to be the one wed to me, I personally petitioned the emperor for the match. But, do you really wish to marry me? Of course. Resolutely. I walked with him up the ceremonial platform. The customs in Northern Way were different. After paying respects under the guidance of Thaddeus, a wedding officiant, we were to drink wine mixed with each other's blood, a symbol that we would be of one flesh and soul for life. Darian looked at me, a little worried. I heard Southern Key girls are delicate. If you're afraid of pain. Before he could finish, I cut him off. No need. I, Serafina, am not some fragile maiden. With that, I drew a knife and sliced my palm. A few drops of blood fell into the cup. Darian's eyes gleamed with admiration. The princess is indeed as resilient as the rumors say. Northern Way was not like Southern Key. Though still crown prince, Darian already commanded his own army and officials. He governed the entire eastern region and even had several tribes under his authority. We rode side by side across the open plains, falcons soaring above. Over the next few days, I came to know Darian's forthright, generous nature. Unlike Julian, who had always seen me as nothing more than a jealous woman trapped in the inner palace, Darian really respected me. So I got straight to the point: we could work together. Northern Way lacked food and agricultural skills. If he helped me and my brother reclaim power from Julian, I would provide them with grain and farming techniques. He tugged his reins and chuckled. I have one condition to add. Princess Serafina must never divorce me in the future. I had never intended to divorce him, so I agreed without hesitation. He laughed heartily. Excellent. With the plan set, we began reigning the army together. Meanwhile, Julian couldn't sit still. Perhaps feeling humiliated, he brought 100 troops to surround the Northern Way border, demanding Darian return me and promising to send another princess in exchange. For years, Southern Key and Northern Way had enjoyed peace. Now, faced with Julian's army, the Northern Way ministers urged Darian to hand me over. It was, after all, a Southern Key internal matter. Amid the chorus of persuasion, Darian Lasley shook out his cloak. Serafina is already my wife. You want me to return my wife to the Southern Key region to be dealt with? Do you take me for a corpse? But since you ministers seem so concerned, why don't you hand over your own wives to the Southern Key regent instead? At that, the entire court fell silent. Who didn't know that Darian was famous for being a man of his word? What if he really took a liking to me and ended up taking his future wife into his own home? The others could only click their tongues and curse me as a femme fatale. But I didn't care in the slightest. I followed Darian to the border on horseback with a calm and different expression. What I hadn't expected was that Julian actually brought Lilith with him to the battlefield. When I confronted Julian at the border, Lilith was pitifully nestled in his arms, clad in his armor like some kind of accessory that couldn't be separated from him. Seeing me standing side by side with Darian, Julian's face turned cold. Serafina, come here. I smiled faintly. Does the regent want the crown princess of Northern Way to abandon her husband and go with you? Is that appropriate? A flash of possessiveness crossed Julian's face. So what if it isn't? Asked Darian. Can he still protect you now? Would he really risk going to war with Nanki just to keep you by his side? Serafina, you'd better stop playing games and come back with me. I looked toward the generals behind him, all of whom were clearly disapproving. The regent should understand that I married into Northern Way for the sake of peace between our nations. It was Lilith who refused the marriage. As her elder sister, I sacrificed my own engagement and took her place. If the regent starts a war recklessly, what he'll destroy is the peace of both nations. Julian sneered. So what? Asked Darian. Does he even dare fight me? Darian placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and raised a brow slightly. Why wouldn't I? The men of Northern Way have always been brave. We won't be intimidated by scoundrels like you. The Northern Way soldiers roared in agreement behind him. Julian's face remained cold. Lilith suddenly spoke softly in the wind. Her voice was delicate and pitiful. Sister, please don't destroy the peace between our nations. Just come back with Julian. I know you're jealous of me, but you can't let your jealousy hurt everyone. I mounted my horse, turned around, and cast her a cold glance. Lilith, the one harming the people is not me, it's you and your Julian. And please, when you speak to me, stop using that fake delicate voice. It exhausts me. Lilith began sobbing. Julian's eyes blazed with fury. Then so be it. War it is. Serafina. You just wait. The day I drag you back. You'll know what it means to truly regret your choices. I didn't even look back. I'll be waiting. The peace that had lasted hundreds of years between Northern Wei and Nanqi shattered in just a few days. Fueled by Julian's provocation, the troops of Northern Wei were burning with fighting spirit. But the soldiers of Nanqi had no desire to go to war over this nonsense. They couldn't understand what madness had taken hold of the regent. In just a few days, Nanqi's forces were driven back repeatedly. Julian's brows knit tighter with each defeat, and his gaze toward me grew darker with hatred. But I didn't care at all. I continued playing a game of cat and mouse with him. Every time I saw him beaten and battered, I felt deeply satisfied. After several more days, Julian finally couldn't take it anymore and sent envoys to negotiate peace. I never wanted him to die out there anyway. So I quickly discussed terms with Darien and arranged a banquet in our camp to welcome Julian for peace talks. Julian blamed everything on me. At the peace banquet, the moment he saw me, his eyes were full of hatred. This is all your fault. Are you satisfied now? You've completely disgraced Nanqi. I took a sip of wine, remembering the ridiculous charges he laid on me in our past life. No matter the life, he always blamed others. I gave him a cold look. Don't pin everything on me. The one who lost was you, Regent. You're the incompetent one. The reckless one. The one who endangered the lives of the people for your own pride. Lilith, unable to bear seeing her beloved scolded, rushed in front of Julian, eyes filled with tears. Sister, how could you say that about Julian? Everything he did for you. He sacrificed so much. Don't you feel anything? I let out a mocking laugh. No, don't flatter me. He was fighting for his own pride. And he lost. He didn't die. So maybe save your tears for his funeral. I paused, then added, it'll make your grief look more sincere. Julian's eyes blazed with fury. Serafina, did you just curse me? He raised his hand to strike, then seemed to think better of it. He looked at me coldly and sat down at the table. The discussions began roost terms. Reparations. My demands were simple. I only wanted him to hand over command of the 3-0 Imperial Guards in the capital to my younger brother. He looked up at me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A bad feeling rose in my gut. Was Julian really going to? A chill ran through me. I looked at him instinctively, only to see him snap his fingers. Thick smoke suddenly rose from the direction of the supply wagons. At the same time, chaotic footsteps and the sharp clash of weapons echoed from outside. I shot to my feet. Everyone knew the rules of this land. No side may attack during a peace negotiation. Julian had shamelessly used the truce as a chance to catch us off guard. Julian, what? Call off your men right now. Do you want to go down in history as the one who brought shame to Nanqi? Julian sneered. So what? History is written by the victors. Once I win, I'll write it however I want. Serafina, let's be honest, this is your fault. You pushed me to this. Otherwise, I would never have gone this far. When I drag you back, I'll make you my concubine. You used to be worthy of being my princess. But from now on, you'll only be fit to warm my bed. He lifted his chin, as if already imagining me kneeling in surrender. Lilith blinked, a smug look on her face. Sister, hadn't fulfilled land so sure. Don't be mad at Julian. He only did all this because he loves you. When you move into the manor, let's get along. Okay? As they smiled smugly, I exchanged a glance with Darien. The fish had taken the bait. From the moment Julian sent the letter proposing peace, I knew he would never accept defeat willingly. So I had already made my preparations. The supplies he had torched were just empty decoys. We had already moved the real ones elsewhere. Julian kept his head high, basking in imagined victory. But after a long while, he realized the noise outside had vanished. The shouting, the clashing of weapons, it had all gone quiet. Julian looked around in confusion and clapped his hands again. But still, silence. He finally sensed that something was wrong and quickly walked toward the exit. But just then, the sound of armored soldiers echoed outside. A large group of troops clad in Northern Way armor surrounded the tent completely. Darian drew his long blade and stepped in front of Julian. Where does the regent think he's going? Julian stepped back. His face filled with anger. You set me up, didn't you? Serafina. You bitch. You actually dared to plot against me? What good does it do you if Nanki loses? I chuckled softly. You're wrong. It's not Nanki that lost, you did. And how can you say I set you up? You struck first. We merely defended ourselves. He clenched his jaw unwillingly. I agreed to your negotiation terms. Wasn't it those 3,000 Imperial Guards you wanted? I'll get them to you. Bring me the treaty, I'll sign it. Under his resentful glare, I picked up the treaty that had been laid out on the table, then tore it apart. Too late. If you had signed earlier, it might have mattered. You tried to drag me back to be your concubine. You think I'd ever let you off the hook? I am the Princess Royal of Nanki, now Crown Princess of Northern Way. And you humiliated me in public. And you think you'll walk out of here alive? Keep dreaming. Julian's face twisted with rage. His finger pointed at me. Serafina. Don't go too far. Don't forget how the late emperor begged me on his deathbed to entrust my brother to you. Without me, you think he'd still be on the throne? Without me, what are you and your brother? Lila started sobbing again as if she had an endless supply of tears. Yes, I didn't fulfill la obsession. Sister. How can you say that about brother Julian? He willingly helped Caspian rule. He's already sacrificed so much. I sneered and clapped my hands. Soldiers immediately surrounded Julian. Sacrificed? And he won't have to suffer any longer. Julian glanced around at the soldiers. Then gave me one last vicious glare. Suddenly, he drew a dagger from his waist and lunged at me. Serafina. You die first. The gleaming blade sliced through the air with deadly force. Memories of my brother's death and the past life flashed before my eyes. I was frozen to the spot, almost able to feel the wind against my face. Julian's expression was crazed, a flicker of triumph in his eyes. But just as he was about to reach me, Darian yanked me back. I collapsed into his arms, and could hear his heartbeat pounding in my ear. Serafina. Are you all right? He looked down at me, then turned and kicked Julian hard. Julian was sent flying, crashing into a table, smashing crockery everywhere. Lilith screamed and rushed to him. In the chaos, I steadied myself and grabbed a soldier's sword from his belt. Step by step, I approached Julian. In my previous life, he had killed my brother, thrown me into a dungeon, and let soldiers and jailers humiliate and torture me. In this life, he dared to publicly humiliate me and wanted to make me his concubine. Julian deserved to die. I raised my hand and stabbed at him without hesitation. Serafina. You dare? Why wouldn't I? Lilith and Julian had been huddled together, but when she saw my blade drawing near, she screamed and shoved him aside, fleeing to a corner. The sword struck Julian square in the chest. Blood streamed from his chest as he stared at Lilith in disbelief. Lilith. You. Lilith looked terrified. She clutched her head and whimpered. I'm sorry, brother Julian. Sister. It was all his idea. Just kill him, don't kill me. Please. Don't kill me. I yanked out the sword and scoffed. Take them away. Naturally, I took control of Julian's border troops. They didn't want to fight Northern Way in the first place, but had to obey Julian's orders. Now that I had captured him, they quickly sided with me. Julian was lucky the blow hadn't pierced his heart. I had him searched and found the military seal on him. I needed to return to Nanki, taking Julian and Lilith, now prisoners, with me. Once everything was ready, it was time to depart. Lilith was locked in a prison cart. Even after days, she still looked pitiful, having fulfilled my obsession. Cowering in the corner, her eyes fixed on Darian as he bid me farewell. Unfortunately for her, Darian didn't spare her a glance, his eyes were only on me. She clutched the bars of the cart and rasped out, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Did you know? Serafina's always loved Julian. She clung to him constantly. She's long since been defiled. Darian turned and walked toward her. Seeing this, Lila swallowed and continued quickly. When she was just a girl, She often spent nights alone with Julian. Who knows what they are? Her words were cut off by a shriek of agony. Blood sprayed from her mouth. Darian had sliced out her tongue. His expression was cold and indifferent. I'm not blind like Julian. That trick doesn't work on me. A woman like Serafina could never be smeared by the likes of you. I don't want your filthy mouth to taint her ears, so you won't be speaking again. I sighed and pressed a hand to my forehead. You. He reluctantly escorted me to the border. Unwilling to part. Serafina. I'll wait for you here. I nodded. And I ordered Julian, still alive, to be dragged behind my horse. Yeah. 2 days later. I arrived at the capital. Caspian and the ministers greeted me at the city gates. When they saw me, they knelt in unison. Welcome back, Princess Royal. Caspian had grown noticeably taller and carried more of a sovereign air. He rushed over to me. Sister. This time, he would grow into a true emperor and lead Nanki into a brighter future. Over the next few days, I gathered ministers who had once sided with Julian and dismantled his hidden power networks. Those who refused to surrender were dragged to the public square and executed. And just like that, Julian's decade-long grip on Nanki unraveled completely in my hands. Once everything was settled, I went to the prison to see Julian and Lilith. The dungeon lay underground. I descended the narrow corridor lit by flickering torches. The cold wind rattled the torture devices hanging on the walls. Still stained with dried blood, Julian and Lilith were locked in the same cell. Once deeply devoted lovers who had sworn to never part. They now sat far apart. On opposite ends of the cell. I had ordered the guards to give them only one steamed bun a day. I'd heard they fought bitterly over it every time. Lilith no longer feigned weakness. Julian, still wounded, was about evenly matched with her. They both looked up from the straw when they heard footsteps. Serafina. Julian's eyes lit up when he saw me. He hurried to the cell door. Serafina. I knew you still care for me. Let me out. And I'll do anything you want. Serafina. I love you. I was just deceived by that wretched woman. Let me out. And I'll divorce her and marry only you. All right. I kicked his hand away and looked down at him from above. My husband is a jealous man. He wouldn't tolerate filth like you. Julian raised his head reluctantly. We've had over a decade together. Have you really fallen for him? What's it to you? Julian. You're nothing but my prisoner now. Honestly, hadn't so wide sigh. If we hadn't prepared in advance. What do you think would have happened to me if I had fallen into your hands? I sneered, recalling the fate my brother and I suffered in our previous life. But it's not impossible to let you two out. His eyes lit up at that. I swept my gaze over to Lilith beside him, and a mocking smile played at my lips. But there are 2 people in this cell. I can't possibly let both out, can I? So by tomorrow morning, you two should decide who gets to leave. With that, I turned and walked out. Behind me, there was silence at first, then the sound of a violent struggle erupted. The next morning, the jailer brought unexpected news. To my surprise, it was Julian who had died. Word was Lilith killed him with a shard of porcelain. I clapped my hands and ordered Lilith to be released and thrown by the roadside as a beggar. With everything settled, it was time to return to Northern Way. Riding swiftly on horseback, I galloped toward the horizon. Darian, clad in white armor and crimson robes, stood waiting at the border. I circled overhead. I heard his voice, soft and full of affection, calling out my name. Serafina. The end.